Welcome back to the Lost Info Podcast. As always, it's keeping you awake. Jake, Steven is running late. There's a snowstorm going on. I'm not going to go into all the stuff that we usually do prior to the case file. This case file is a guest. He means a whole lot to me. He's been a big inspiration on me starting this. And I told him that as well. So I'm kind of like on a fanboy mode right now. But he hosts his own show, Those Conspiracy Guys. He's a comedian. And Gordo, welcome to the show.
Jake, thanks for having me, man. It's good to be here. Finally, after all these weeks.
Yeah, we've had a couple delays and things, but that happens.
Yeah, it happens, man. Life gets in the way sometimes.
Absolutely.
And especially now because you've got a fucking snowstorm happening. It's
yeah.
Well, half your crew is on
we kind of thought our winter was over, so everybody was already planning on bringing out bikes, and there was motorcycle rides, and then all of a sudden a snowstorm hit.
don't put away those snowmobiles yet.
Yeah, exactly. That's why Steven's running late, but who knows? He might not even get here. They were saying that if we catch the middle of it, it was going to be really bad. So please
God, he doesn't get stuck out there, and we have some kind of alive type situation.
Yeah, we'll have to go find him.
Eat an Argentinian football player or something to survive. It's like, what are you doing in Chicago?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in the Quad Cities he can crawl to somewhere and get warm.
Yeah.
So on this case file, I know that, basically you and I being conspiracy type guys, and you being the conspiracy guy, or those.
No, it's not definitive.
Those.
It's a very specific title there. Because if I said I was the conspiracy guy,
then it would just be you.
Yeah. What an audacious claim! Like, you were the
true
conspiracy guy. I mean, I think that could go to Alex Jones or David Icke or possibly Eddie Bravo at this stage. Who the fuck knows who's the conspiracy guy?
That's true.
But those conspiracy guys is nicely delineated or dispersed. There's no responsibility.
Yeah. So on that, with that being said, I'd like to kind of go over maybe not the whole entire overview and story of conspiracies, but maybe touch on certain points. There is a lot that cross. Obviously, anybody that is into conspiracies and you go over all these topics, there's a lot of intersections anyway. But in the beginning, kind of, as far as I am concerned on conspiracy, it starts on when we had the power and control that really took place, which I look at religions or deities. And when you look at that, it kind of is pushing a belief or some kind of knowledge per se onto somebody, and they're kind of expected to follow that. And then when you take that and manipulate it, obviously you can gain a lot of control, because you don't really need armies at that point. You just really need people to hold close their beliefs, which will also play into a topic that is going to be focused on here predominantly is Bluebeam, Project Bluebeam.
Mm-hmm.
So on the deities, and this is kind of just something that I was thinking about when I was just going on religions. We have Jesus Christ, for Christianity. And then you have, what is it, Horus and Mithra,
Dionysus, Hercules, Mithra,
and they all have like the same story. So I was kind of wondering, on somebody that looks into it a lot, do you think that story has been taken and used in these different deities titles, or do you think they have those similar stories?
Oh, like 100%. It's one motherfucker, and I think it either could be allegorical or it could be a real person that has been
transformed into different names.
Yeah, multiple times, turned into different names, into different epochs and different eras. There's the, even going into like the very ancient lore and culture of the Native American tribes. There's, the Hopi Indians episode. We did an episode on Hopi Indians, and we find that there's a great white man from the sky,
Yeah.
And when he arrives, he's supposed to come down and bless everybody. So, like, could it be, Jake, perchance, perhaps, the same motherfucker coming back again to different cultures? Could it be a story of an ancient civilization that maybe came from, say, like, I don't want to say. See, when you say Aryan
Yeah,
race, it kind of brings up connotations of Nazis and Hitler and stuff like that. But
yeah,
there's an Aryan breed of extraterrestrials that are tall,
Nordics or
brown hair,
whatever.
blue eyes, the Nords, yeah. And so these Aryan type aliens, could that be the Prometheus that brought fire to the
And
humans
see, I
on
thought
Earth?
the possibility of either returning and making this same story over and over, or that it was just taken, down to the next, like, hey, we heard this story in our ancient times, and then recreating that story to, I don't know, to either push forward that belief and narrative. But I think that once they understood the power of religion, because I mean, really, if you think about it, in any kind of being, to know your purpose and who created you or how you were created, and where you're going or why you're even here as a purpose, I think that's the closest thing to your person or your heart. So it's the
It's a
easiest thing
huge
to hold.
idea. It's a huge idea, right?
Yeah.
And one of the we recorded an episode a little while ago on the mystery of the Egyptian pyramids, and particularly focused on like the pyramids of Giza, Egypt, Egyptian culture, the measurements and the special geometry and engineering around the pyramids, but also around the kind of the religious overtones, the ancient knowledge connotations, and the disappearance or the lost info from the Lost Info podcast. The lost info that was obfuscated, deleted, removed, eroded, um, with stuff like the Sphinx, the pyramids' real purpose, possibly, well, there was like rivulets of water that were running underneath the pyramids
Yeah.
that turned it into like an electro
Talking about
hydro
Mercury or something.
generator. And
They said rivers of Mercury, all that.
yeah, could have been that. There was like the limestone capstones, or the covering. There was like
Yeah.
smooth white limestone with a gold capstone like on the top, which is obviously a very highly efficient conductor of electricity. Could this have been like some kind of Tesla wireless electricity technology that was then removed because we knew too much? And I touched on a couple of little bits like from episodes that we're going to do in the future, like Tartaria and the mud floods, where there
Yeah.
was like even 200 years ago there was technology that humans had in their hands, like that they were using, but it was very much like a cottage industry of uh purported pseudoscience. Like people were like, oh, these poppycock, Nikola Tesla type people who were coming up with these ideas, and it kind of ended up being then a bunch of white, either Protestant or Presbyterian, Anglo-American, possibly Franco-American white dudes who came and claimed all of these technologies, like Marconi, Italian American, John Logie Baird. Like Marconi made the radio, John Logie Baird made the TV.
Yeah.
Thomas Edison took the
Well, he
rap for
stole a lot of
loads of
shit.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like, but they all
Yeah.
stole loads of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
motherfuckers all stole it.
I think one of the
And they went,
ones that I know the most was with Nikola Tesla. Well, I mean, basically everybody wanted to bury him, but I think that was the most talked about because it was more in the current. Well, I mean, not really current, but our current history that we can actually look
the
back and see some
alternating
of the shit
current
that he did.
history.
Yeah, some of the shit that he actually did instead of it being completely erased. And yeah,
Well,
I think that a lot of
he
people
wanted
come
to
to
give it away for free. That's why he had
yeah.
to go. He didn't want to commodify it. He didn't want to create a conglomerate or like a multinational corporation like General
Oh,
Electric. He
we'd have a
wanted to.
way different society if any of his stuff got to
But
be
this is the
public.
thing. So I believe that Tesla had locked into a bank of ancient knowledge that he was, maybe not religiously gifted this information, but definitely like naturally gifted, and his brain was able to come up with these concepts that I feel, and I feel this is the way about information at all times, that
Yeah.
it's a sea above
That's
our
why I kind of
heads,
feel
or
like
maybe below our feet,
yeah.
but like a sea of information that floats above our heads, like the
Well,
cloud.
I feel like that's why in this current time, when we get into Bluebeam and whatever else, that it's more plausible that this plan unfolds now, because I don't think in any time in history they would have thought and I'm sure that they kind of thought through this plan, but the amount of information that we share amongst each other that is almost like catching up to their plan. I
Yeah, it's
think you
too
have to kind of
much.
unroll it. If you're going to do it, you're going to have to do it now or shut the internet down.
That's the thing. So the internet, the fact that we're all communicating with each other, I believe, because there is this kind of ether, right? That exists above us all, and we all get it in dreams. We get it sometimes in the subconscious. Did you ever watch that Disney movie Soul?
Yeah. Yep.
So in Soul, you know, this motherfucker's like, he when he plays music, he goes into the zone, he goes into the flow state, and his soul ends up going to a different place, and it's fulfilled with information from somewhere outside of himself, that's based on like the the collective knowledge of the consciousnesses of all the people living and dead. So like there's this, whether you know it or not, you're contributing to this sea of um electrostatic or electro generated information, because you know, like all the stuff that's in our brains, it's just like, you know, kind of meat porridge with
Yeah.
electricity in it. So we're all kind of
Yeah.
like fucking logging into this thing. A lot of the times when
Well, a lot of
very
people have talked about that too. I
well, of
mean,
course, like, and you experiment with psychedelic drugs to try and get into that kind of liminal state,
Edgar
or try and find that.
Casey, Nikola Tesla, all of them had
Yeah,
talked about some other like hub where you connect in.
and then the guys like Carlos Castaneda,
He
the
made
guys
it, by
like
the way.
oh,
He made it. He made
he
it
still got
in.
he still got Argentinians on his lips. What's going on, bro?
He made it through the snow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is Steven. We haven't came up with a name yet. He wanted to kind of have a name for the show, but I said believe in Steven, but I don't know if it's stuck.
That's pretty good.
I don't know if it's stuck. But anyway, we're just basically touching on the topic of religions, and then this whole notion of there's, I don't know if you want a hub or a central place where you can go and gather this knowledge of either all beings or humans in the past or whatever it is.
The mind cloud,
Yeah.
as it were.
Yeah.
So
Tapping into the
like
cloud.
people are taking these psychedelics and going off into this other dimension, you know. So you do this ayahuasca, it's starting to get very big now. Josie Rogan's talking about just DMT shit, which
Yeah.
is like the stuff that your brain shits out just before you die. And what the purpose of that is shitting it out into your brain, so you can go, oh, okay, I'm part of something bigger. It's not just going to go black and then I'm gone. It's a thing of like, don't freak out, bro. Like, everything's cool. Your consciousness is going back home.
Yeah.
And you end up coming down here. You know, Grant Morrison talked about this InfoCon very astutely, saying like, we're sent here to grow time for extraterrestrials. They can't experience, they're fifth dimensional mercurial blobs that can't experience time. They know everything from the past to the future. And they're jealous of us because we get to live it from start to finish. Time is linear for us, but for them, they live outside of time in the fifth dimension. And that's the shit of the archons.
Yeah.
They talk about like demons and jinn and all these different religions. There's these entities that live outside of our physical 3D space, right? And
Yeah,
they
I've always
have a
that
knowledge
always
that we don't have, and then they, for some reason, have created us somehow
yeah.
to be
I was
able
gonna
to
say, what is it?
grow
Simulation for
experience.
us?
Yeah, they're able to grow experience because we go around and because they can't experience anything because they know everything from past to the future. We're living on the earth. We go around
In the
through this.
present, yeah.
Doing Donnie Darko and they have this thing coming out of your chest like a big blue worm.
Yeah.
And like there's like you know, like that's from a religious kind of like a psychedelic religious understanding
I
of how
before
we
even
grow time, like
before even the conspiracies, I always was interested in the fact of like all these, you know, being, well, I mean, obviously Sasquatch or Bigfoot is the most known, but then you have, you know, Nessie, and you have these dragons from, you know, the Chinese culture, and you have jinn, and you have fairies, and you have trolls and goblins and whatever, you know, what have you.
Ring shit.
And then they
Yeah.
throw it all in this entertainment world, like Disney takes them and all makes them into movies, and you have Tinkerbell and you have all this and that. But it's somewhere that story derived from, you know, an origin. And I don't think it was a fairy tale.
Yeah, there's how many, like, the earth has been here for what, 4.6 billion years, probably
Right.
more. how many iterations of beings, how many iterations of the Earth being in the Goldilocks zone with the sun in the distance,
Yeah.
like having like the nitrogen oxygen mix. Um, I read a thing the other day that these fucking things you read, it blows your mind. Like the Earth is so old, right? That and the dinosaurs were here for so long, that still in the time when there was dinosaurs on the Earth, there was also prehistoric fossils of dinosaurs on the Earth. That's how long they were here. Like the first dinosaurs died and were fossilized enough
By
to
the
be like fossils as we would see them today, and
while
there was
other
still
dinosaurs.
dinosaurs on the Earth. And do you know what I mean? Like they were here
Oh,
for a really
yeah,
fucking
there
long
was
time.
the comparison of planets in our galaxy and then galaxies compared to other galaxies and the size difference and how
Yeah,
many Earths go into Jupiter. And it's like, when you start going into these numbers and like, time and space or whatever being sucked into black holes at 17 million miles an hour. And I mean, it's like, I don't know. I like to believe in math because I think that's one thing that doesn't lie much. But it's like when they start throwing these numbers out there, and then it's like you get into NASA being such a huge part in all these nefarious things. It's like it's just hard to believe because that's really your only source.
they're a gatekeeper of knowledge, and like with anything that's a gatekeeper, it's set there to obfuscate the true meaning. So whether
Yep.
they are telling you, even if it's only 80% of the truth, whatever that other 20% is, must be important enough to look at. You have to look at that shit like me. What? Just one sec. I'm okay for that. No, I'm okay. Thanks. Sorry about that.
You're right.
You have to look at this shit like a court case, right? So it's like means, motive, and opportunity, right? They
Yeah.
have the means. NASA have the means. So they have all the technologies. They have the good standing. They have the experience of being to the moon.
Yeah.
They have all of the information. They have all of the funding from the government to do all of this stuff. Like they're an official, space force. Space force.
Yeah.
The
They were
best
our first.
force.
Yeah.
We're gonna go into space. We're gonna take over this whole area. There's so much real estate up there, you guys. So much room. We're not making use of it, okay?
And like they're the ones who are the authority over that, right? So that's the means they were able to do it. The
Right.
opportunity comes when we're like you, the question you first asked is religion used to take over that space in our hearts,
Yeah.
to make us be controlled because we want to believe in that, we want to, I don't know, have something that gives us a meaning to our lives,
Yeah.
right? So in the absence of traditional religion, because in the modern day religion has been abdicated by most people because they're like, well, you're all dressed in black and fucking children. I don't believe in that shit anymore. So they're like, they create a new religion of
Yeah. I was gonna say.
science/science fiction. So they have the opportunity to um take advantage of this newfound scientism. Do you know?
Yeah.
Trust the science. This is the thing.
Well,
It's
I
a new
think that,
religion.
and we'll get into that on Bluebeam, but that I think, but see that, and when we get into religion, I think the
But
one part I don't understand is that when people hold something so close, if you've ever talked to anybody that's very religious, I mean, you could tell them, and it could be in complete plain sight, and they won't go against that religion, no matter what.
yeah, it's the
So
same. It's the same as arguing with someone from Tennessee about Jesus. They're
yeah,
just like, no, Jesus done me good.
yeah.
Had my 7
So
kids. They all had the feet
so
still.
trying to take that
And
away and create a new one,
you know,
I feel is going to be a hard feat for them.
well,
The
look at
government.
man. This is the thing. Uh, a lot of people are bought into this thing now. They've moved them away from religion. They've demoralized them towards a religious outlook, which seems to be like, to me, religion is a little bit of a cod. It's a little bit of a foolhardy endeavor, because it's just like concentrated hope.
Yeah,
Like I fucking just really hope I'm right.
yeah,
Because if I'm
that's
not,
pretty
like,
much what
what
it is.
else happens? You close your eyes at the end and everything goes black. Like, what have you got to lose, right? But the means, motive, and opportunity for NASA, for example, they have the means as demonstrated. The opportunity is there now because there's a gap in the, what would you say? There's a gap in the market of our souls for them to come and fill that with the knowledge that they gatekeep. But what's the motive? And if you find out what the motive is, and usually the motive in any good crime show, is it's fucking, your man's wife is having sex with somebody, or It's about money, you know. Somebody stole money off somebody else. He's like, I'm gonna kill you, motherfucker. Like, what are the reasons people get killed, right? So this motive for NASA to do this stuff, even if there's like a slight obfuscation or a slight redaction of that information, if they're telling us 80% of the truth, what's the other 20%? And why do they not want us to know it?
Yeah.
What is so valuable about that? That
Yeah.
they're able to let all the rest of it away.
To a
So
point
is
of
it
like
I'm-
hundreds of years.
So this
Yeah.
is the vacuum. This is the vacuum of knowledge that conspiracy theorists come and fill the space of. So
Yeah.
they just go and fucking pew, 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 just start guessing using all the available information. They're like, well, it's probably this, it's probably this, it's probably this, it's probably this. Like they're
Yeah.
using real things with a little bit of
Just to
stank
fill
on it.
that void. Yeah.
So they're saying NASA are lying to us in certain ways because the Earth is actually flat, and if we found it out, the whole world would be topsy turvy.
Well, right now there is a lot of so this YouTube what do they call that lady? Anyway, she goes to who they basically cancel and censor. I don't know her exact title, but she was just in court and they were saying, what are you going to do for people that are spreading this misinformation about flat Earth? And she said, as soon as we get any algorithms stating that they're promoting this flat Earth theory, conspiracy theory, that we will censor and ban them right away. And so she's telling, the court this. And it's like, first of all, misinformation is one thing, but obviously we wouldn't know that. So a lot of people that are saying, hey, the studies show, or my research says this, it's not a misinformation. It's all the information that you have. And even if that was the case, to be censored just to speak your mind also leads you to think like, okay, well, they're covering something up if they're going to these extents to shut these people up. So it almost proves their point more.
That'd be the logical assumption that if there is a multinational conglomerate that has been engaging in historically nefarious practices,
yeah,
that they wouldn't have, the world's best interests at heart. And when they come out to try and censor something, there's a motive behind that censorship. Right. So what is that motive? People are trying to figure out. Now, obviously, I don't want to get your show like bumped off a load of stuff. So let's call it instead of the word that we're not supposed to use, let's call it cerveza, right?
Yeah.
So if the cerveza 19s comes along, right, and everybody's like, no, and they start saying loads of like anti-sciencey type things that the mainstream are like, this is anti-science. If they're calling out, no, like I'm not a medicine man, but if you're looking at it from a conspiracy point of view, and you go, well, here's a bunch of companies that have done a load of shady shit. Some of them are billions in the hole for fucking lawsuits against them.
Rogan's going through it right now.
Yeah, but this is the thing. So it's coming to that, right?
Yeah.
At the very start, people were like, no, this is bullshit. This seems like bullshit. It seems like a control mechanism. I'm going to call it out. Let's wait. And then 6 months go by and you're like, yeah, well, this is what I called. I'm calling it now as this. So like November, when the second set of stay in your home orders came, they're like, okay. And now 2 years later, it takes 2 years. 2 years later, the lads who were shouting about this shit at the start have all now, in my mind, and in the minds of a lot of like right thinking, news consumers, have been proven right. Because look what's happening. They're shutting down information. They're shutting down, like protests. They're taking away bank accounts of lads driving trucks just because they're protesting. I was like, why weren't they taking away the bank accounts of the people who were burning down Cincinnati and burning down cities all over America with Black Lives Matter protests in 2020? Why were they even allowing like GoFundMe accounts? Why was Kamala Harris a fucking vice presidential or presidential candidate turned vice presidential candidate actively promoting people to give the BLM crowd money to help them with their cause? And then as soon as the elections were over, these motherfuckers, Kaiser Soze, like I haven't heard about BLM for months and months and months, for over a year, right? They're doing nothing, right?
Yeah.
So like you look at all of that stuff historically, but because there's so much, man, with this flood of information. So we go back then to talking about the humans communicating, right?
Yep. Right.
Usually religion is the best way to give a memorandum to the populace. So you take religion and you go, look we need everybody to follow the same rules. And traditionally, the book of religious beliefs was put out, and if you subscribe to that religion, you get all the benefits of it, but you also have to follow all the rules. So
Yeah.
it's an easy way to homogenize behavior across a certain subset of culture. So
Yeah.
you go into the Bible and you say, right, you follow the rules of the Bible. Don't be raping, don't be robbing, don't be murdering. No gays. No fucking your wife. No fucking your neighbor's donkey. No fucking eating shrimp. They say they say don't eat shrimp more than they say don't lie with a man in the Bible, right? But the reason is because if you're in the Middle East and you have a bucket of shrimp, it's not going to last that long. So you're better off just not taking a chance on seafood if you're in the Middle East, you know.
Yeah.
It's all of these practical rules for life, you know, and how to and
You can eat
also,
babies though.
totally eat babies. They're fucking delicious. Sauteed with a bit of fucking
That's at the top of the menu.
bit of teriyaki baby. But like there's also then this other thing of like treat your neighbor as you want to be treated yourself, you know, you love God and honor his name and all of these kind of things that are like lovely things. If you were able to, you know, do your day to day without robbing and raping and being super selfish and like pushing people out of the way, religion is a great way to have a police presence inside
Yeah.
everybody's head. If you make them believe that there's an invisible man watching them at all
Oh yeah,
times,
the guilt in Christianity is ridiculous.
and if they behave outside of it's not even just in Christianity, man.
Well,
Like,
I meant coming from
Islam. There's a guilt in
Yeah.
Islam that then you fucking lose.
I
these
meant
if
from
you
my
fucking
point of
like-
view, being raised
Yeah.
as Catholic, it's like you have to go tell a guy every bad thing he did for the week, and you know,
Well, that's that fucking confession shit.
yeah.
That's like that wasn't originally. There was no confession back in the day. That was only brought in like in the last.
Well, I was
couple
going
of
to say
hundred
it pretty
since-
much just gives you up to everybody about who you are. It's like information collecting.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's the CIA in a frock. Those
Yeah.
motherfuckers were like, how do we get these people to tell us their innermost thoughts and desires?
Yeah.
And also, how do
Now they
we-
just get a Facebook account. And
how do we get these people to confess their fucking sexual proclivities? How do we get to find out which one of these kids is gonna suck my dick? Like they got to get them in. So you do your first confession. Your first communion is at like not 10, but your
Yeah,
first
something like
confession is
that,
at
yeah.
like 7. So you
Yeah,
go in for your first confession before you really know what.
as early as I
shit is.
remembered. Yeah.
As early as you remember, and they dress you up like a little snooker player, and you go in and you're all like, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned." And one time I was watching this movie, and there was this woman, I think her name's Sharon Stone, and she uncrossed her legs, and I saw the furry bit, and my willy went hard like a AAA battery. And you're like, "Tell me more, my child."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's
Exactly.
a fucking grooming mechanism. Then you get like women coming in and saying, "Oh, Father, God bless me, I had impure thoughts and I ended up flicking my bean last Thursday." They're like, "You
More.
had sexual pleasure from sex? How dare you? Go home and have 9 more children." Like this the way they fucking control your head, right? But
It definitely
with
when you get outside of it, you know, as you get older, at least for me or whatever else, and I've seen a lot of people go through the same thing. You just kind of start questioning, like, why am I telling a third party this? And then first of all, and then it just gets to like, you know, you start feeling like, okay, all these rules make zero sense unless you're just trying to control somebody. It has nothing to do with your beliefs or your
Exactly.
creator.
How are they going to use
Exactly.
this against me later?
Yeah. It just
Yeah,
it starts
and
to
they
get
just write-
weird when you start to question things like, and that's the thing.
Just
I think that's the most important is the topics of either any show, really conspiracy show, or just the communication or conversation. And that's kind of why, like me with you wanting to be a part of this conversation, is that we just talk, like we start logically looking over some of these things instead of saying, "Oh, this is the narrative, don't question it," or a conspiracy theorist or whatever it is. Like that just means that you have to question things and logically look it over a couple more times, because it just
Of
doesn't.
course.
Yeah.
But then what? When the things that was allowed to be questioned, that had some kind of, I don't know, questionable status, like the veracity of the questioning was higher than usual. If you're going, "Hey, I'm asking questions about like Bigfoot. Is Bigfoot a interdimensional being. Is that way we can't see him? So he pops in and out of different dimensions, and he grabs humans and drags them off into
Yeah.
it because he's he's part of an ancient culture of fucking fifth dimensional creatures.
Yeah.
And they're
Zip in and out.
like they just but they
Stargate.
can't. Yeah, they don't have dog penises. They have man penises. So like their man dicks
Super
won't go in-
furry.
Yeah, they won't go into their Sasquatch women's vaginas. The only vaginas that their man dicks will go into is women. So they come in and they won't. You're coming with me, like this kind of. Maybe that's what they're doing. Right, that's a totally fine line of question, and you can do that for 2 hours. Wrap it up. Theme song at the start. Fucking socials at the end. It's a podcast, right? But when you start asking questions about shit like Cerveza, or
Yeah.
you start asking questions about shit like Flat Earth and all these things, and it becomes a list of stuff you're not allowed to talk about.
Well, I was going
Because
to
you're
say
not
the
allowed to get
Crusades
people
started
asking
that way
about-
too.
You're not allowed to get people to ask about that information. These are the things that you're like, oh, it's not funny. They're all talking about ancient aliens, like are the pyramids, electric fucking power plants. And you're like, what's that? Oh, and then they start that one part of it that you're
Yeah.
not allowed to say. You get pulled off the internet for it. There must
I was
be
gonna say
something in that.
It's
Like,
freedom
the
of
motive
speech
behind.
until you hit a bullet point.
But the
Oh,
mo- what's the motive behind that? And that's the thing that I'm looking at. And never more has it been so prevalent in the last 2 years.
yeah.
That there's certain things you're allowed to say, and then certain things that if you say them, you are deleted. And I wonder, like, how is there loads of YouTube channels like Russell Brand that's allowed to talk with impunity about all of these topics? And he has 4.7 million followers, and he's allowed to just be like, and now, right, there's fucking truck drivers, right, in Ottawa, right, blowing their horns, you know what I mean? And he's like fucking going on about it. And then there's
That's a
like
pretty good
9
Russell Brand.
there's 9. I was trying to be as conceited as possible. There's 9 other cunts then that just went like, did you see the truck drivers in Ottawa? Their bank accounts are all getting. Hang on. What? Our Twitter is like live on stream. I seen lads going, your Twitter is gone because you
Yeah.
posted a thing about it. How the fuck is one lad allowed to talk about it, and then another bunch of people who are not so famous not allowed to talk about it? What is it about that topic that they don't
level of
want?
concern you show.
This is it, like.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's going on now that there's certain topics that can't be talked about? The logic would be, as we're talking about it now, the logic would be that that's the thing that they really don't want you to know, which makes me want to know it more, and obviously makes
Yeah.
other people want to know it more.
I was
there
gonna
must be
say,
something in it.
They were saying, what was it? There was a place that they found this cave or whatever. It was some huge opening, and they said it was unstable and whatever else. But they said anybody that goes and researches this, because they were putting the location, the coordinates out to the public, and they said anybody that goes in to this area could be facing up to $1 million fine.
What?
And, yeah, and that was this just
Where's that
recently.
cave? I have to see
Yeah.
that cave.
So it just recently happened, and then I was like, if you would have said like, "Hey, it's unstable," and there could be up to a $500 fine, nobody'd even probably go there. But the fact that this thing looks like an opening to an inner Earth, it's like, and then
Oh,
you put $1 million fine on it, like everybody's gonna want to go there because you
of
know that there's
course they're
something
gonna
there.
Want to go?
Yeah.
What the fuck? It's like the back door into like. It says it's here in British Columbia. It's the back door into the Canadian government's secret underground base, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we got to have a back door, eh, so we can escape if the gates get if they find
Yeah.
the trolls. If they find the trolls in Alberta, they'll get in the front gates." It's in British Columbia Wellsgrave Provincial Park,
Yeah,
and it's
I
a
didn't even
cave that's
see-
been nicknamed the Sarlacc's Pit. And it's $1 million fine if you go into it. What the fuck is that?
yeah.
Or a year in prison.
And I just came across this yesterday, and I didn't get time to look into it, but I was like, I want to find the location and go.
What is in that shit? That sounds like something from Lost.
Yeah,
Like you go in
exactly.
there and there's like
See,
a wooden
we
wheel
haven't
you
got
turn.
there yet, but I was gonna say you're gonna go in there, and the reptilians are gonna come out, and that was their home base.
I mean, we did an episode on Lord of Mercy on poor old Phil Schneider, and he was a
Oh,
he
yeah.
was he was a caveman.
That was
He
who I was telling
he
you
was
about.
Who's that?
The guy that had his fingers blown off,
Okay.
with
and
the-
he got his chest ripped open by a blue laser.
Oh, you were.
yeah, he was a
Yeah,
he was a geologist.
Phil
and,
Schneider,
He was
yeah.
an explosives expert, and he was employed by the American government to come down and blow tunnels in this like
Yeah, to make underground
sedimentary
bases
rock.
and shit.
Yeah, all through Colorado and all this in the mountains of Colorado and what's the name of that place?
Down in
fucking-
Los Alamos or whatever, all the way down to New
Yeah.
Mexico.
There's a place there. It's like Steel Mountain or something like that. Oh fuck.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
That sounds
Anyway,
kind of
he
something of
he
that
was
nature.
blowing these perfect tunnels like these like he was an awesome explosives expert and geologist. And he blew the wrong hole and he fell down a shaft and he ended up like landing in a nest of aliens and they were all kind of like working away and then they went,
The
oh,
fuck is this
Right.
guy?
the down tools took out the gun and it's like, oh no, it's a smooth skin, pew pew pew, and he was like, what? And he put up the
He said he
hand.
killed one of them.
He killed one of them because they
Yeah.
started attacking him and he put his
Yeah.
hand up like this and they shot him in a laser and it went and it fucking
Blazed
seared
off his
like
fingers.
two of his lumpy fingers.
He was
and
one
I-
of the original whistleblowers that I mean, I was like, I don't know, man, this guy's story is pretty wild. And I mean,
and
there was
then
no
died
other
with the
way
worst
his
case of
fingers got
suicide
blown.
anyone's ever seen.
Yeah. And, yeah.
You know, he shot himself twice in the back of the head. But yeah, that was one of those, like, he went on a tour then of saying, like, look at my fucking hand, look at my chest.
Yeah.
This shit happened. This was my job. All his credentials check out. And yeah, and then there was nothing
And-
more about it.
Yeah. And then he got suicided.
Yeah. Worst
So-
case ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucked up, man.
Happens.
The way that religion comes in and fills that gap. But there's something happening now using that same paradigm with this.
Well, and then I had
racist
thought,
situation.
like, so in this Bluebeam that we'll get into here in a second, it basically says they're going to replace all religions, which I never knew this. I actually thought it was when I first read about it long ago, and I didn't go really deep into it. I always thought it was just the holographic UFO attack. I didn't really know the levels and stages of them trying to replace people's religion with a second coming.
Yeah, it's just replacing it with a. It's replacing the part in your heart that religion goes into. The part,
Yeah, and
the part in your soul that other people are supposed to fill. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the fucking.
That's what I thought is a catch-22, because it's going to be really hard to take the religion from some people, and then it's going to be, I mean, the only thing that I saw that it's more plausible is that after this recent pandemic is that when you put enough fear into people, they'll pretty much do whatever you want. I didn't even think that it was as possible until after just
Okay.
recent current
Would
events.
you think the amount of people would be so militant about wearing masks that they would fight each other in the street, in the aisles of Walmart,
Yeah.
and you know, over the tables of Applebee's they fought, as the ancient tomes will read. Like,
Yeah, I would have never. Well, even when I mean, even me and some of the people in my family, it's like it caused huge divides, and I've watched huge, verbal fights and everything over it, which I'd have never thought would have happened based on, what happened in this current
but
reality.
there's a certain staunch belief in the people that are fighting for the wearing of masks, that they've been told a certain set of information that they haven't updated or checked up on, that they haven't re-educated themselves on. The current, like believe the science is always changing, right?
Yeah.
So like the fact that cloth masks are 100%, ineffective, and that's the CDC official line. That shit changes all the time. If you're using an N95 mask, sure, it keeps out particulate. It doesn't keep out like certain variants of cerveza. I don't know. Like, it changes all the time. But the fact that somebody heard a thing one time, they fucking swallowed that in like communion bread, and it just locked into their soul like a padlock on their mind and soul, and said, this is what I'm going to do. And if I just keep doing this no matter what, and don't ever ask any questions, and don't, and just fucking, it makes me feel okay, and that's it. And what harm is it doing to anybody? What harm is it? What harm is it to anybody? And it's just like,
It's locked in. I mean, I
It's
saw
locked
people
in, man.
driving down the street with their mask on by themselves
own
in
in the
their
car.
car. And I'm like,
on their own.
I don't understand.
But because it's not about the particulate, it's not about the fucking globules and the nasal pharynx, and it's not about the fucking, some people coming along then and trying to argue about the science, going, our children are not getting enough oxygen, and carbon dioxide causes this kind of thing, and hypoxia, and blah blah blah, and then that's disproven. And then that gets out because it's on the news, and then a bunch of people are like, hypoxia is not a fucking, it's not a real, like, and then people are going, oh, my kids, and it's like, and it's just the fucking, my kids, and that's the fight then. It's not about the mask at all. It's about who's
and you see that every day.
Obey, right? All of that, we've seen it so many times before, over so many weird different things.
Yeah.
Namely, and the best visual example that I can give is when Iran went through a change of regime, and the Ayatollah came into power, and they said all the women have to now wear like hijabs and burqas, and there's this whole set of rules. You're not allowed to drive cars and blah blah blah. And it was just like the shit that Margaret Atwood talks about in The Handmaid's Tale, and that shit happens overnight. Bank accounts are shut down, jobs are lost, rights are taken away, and it's just a decree. Somebody hits a fucking hammer off a thing, and that's it. From that day on, everybody has to cover your hair because it's become a theocracy. Like, look what happened in Afghanistan when the Americans left. The Taliban took over, motherfuckers lost their hands, everybody's wrapped up like in bed sheets, and it's like, anybody that had nothing to do with the Americans is fucking brown bread. And all the people that are willing to stay in the country, they all have to have these like crazy oppressive.
We're about to go into
rules.
that same kind of situation with Ukraine.
But the mask situation is the same psychology, and it's the same methodology of saying the people who don't believe in this are bad people.
Yeah.
Not that they don't agree with the science of an N95, like particulate and globules and nasal pharynx, like that's semantics. That the drilled in, deeply seated, deeply held belief is, if I wear a mask, I'm a good person.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're a bad person.
Yeah. You could even see like, you forget a mask, whatever, walk into a gas station and all the eyes set upon you like you're like the spawn of Satan. It's like,
but it becomes a self-police, like society then polices itself. You give the smallest amount of authority to every single person, they'll behave like Dwight Schrute. Do you know, some kind of volunteer sheriff's department?
Yeah, exactly.
And he's going around with the little end of a joint on a fucking thing, going,
the Karens come out.
Like the tiniest part of authority turns these people into massive cunts.
Yeah,
because they're like, but not because they're cunts. It turns them into that.
Yeah.
Because they want to feel safe, number one. And number two, they want to feel like good people. And to be honest, not veering too far away from the religion thing, religion helps people feel like that as well. In that structure, that part of your soul that's missing, that niggling self-doubt. I said niggling. I don't want to get a Joe Rogan moment here on the show. That niggling self-doubt where, am I actually a good person? I've done bad things. Am I good? Am I a good person? And everybody has a little bit of guilt of some shit they did, some fucking terrible thing they said at an office Christmas party, or the time that they fucking, shat the bed at some girl's house and then they just left before she woke up and made her think that she shat the bed. And you're like, oh, don't worry, I won't tell anyone. We've all done that, right? What I'm saying is that religion comes in and fills in that part of, listen, no matter what you've done, I forgive you and I still love you. And to be honest, says Jesus in your ear, I'm the only one that knows that you thought that about that person. Jesus says in your ear, I'm the only one that saw you doing that. And I know you fucking wake
except
up
for when you told the priest. But...
Well, this is the fucking thing, you see. I'm the only one that knows that you wake up at 2:00 in the morning sweating out of embarrassment for that thing that you did. And the only other person that knows about it, you haven't seen them in 16 years. And you hope to fuck that you're so unimportant in their life that they don't even give you a second thought. So that memory only lives within you, but you know you've done it. And it makes you question whether you're a good person or not. Do you know what would be a great way to fix that, says Jesus, in your mind? If you wore a mask. If you wear a mask, you'll cement in the eyes of other people that you're a good person. If you put on that mask, or whatever other fucking religious symbolism or whatever other iconography you need to have, like put a fucking fish symbol on the back of your bumper car or whatever, so every
I was gonna say the validation is a real thing, and people really need it.
Validation of other people that say that you're a good person. So they say, if you wear a mask, Jesus whispers in the nighttime, if you wear a mask, it's a symbol that people know that you're a good person, that you care about other people. You don't have to actually care or actually do anything nice for anybody else, or, you know, change your behaviors, or be a different type of a more loving person, a more empathic or charismatic or compassionate person. You don't actually have to change at all. All you have to do is wear the mask / fish bumper sticker / cross / fucking collar, and people will think you're a good person, and then you can fuck all the kids that you like and nobody's going to do anything about it. And if you get caught, and if you get caught, in order to maintain
the
that
legal
facade
fees
of we are good people, they'll just move you from parish to parish, so you'll never ever get
say,
caught.
man,
Like that's
I
how
don't
strong
think
the
people
facade
understand
is.
they still pay billions in legal fees. Billions.
Billions in lawsuits to make people shut the fuck up.
Yeah, payoffs. I'm like, this is crazy.
What I'm saying is, it's not just masks. I'm not getting at the mask wearers out there.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, there's a vulnerability in all humans that's
And
being
they exploit it.
That's being taken advantage of on every level.
For sure.
And if you talk about Project Bluebeam, that's like the ultimate leveler.
I was going to say, that's where it all starts to make more sense when we get into it. Like, now you can kind of see how it's being pulled together.
Yeah.
And so, like, when this first came out, the guy, I can't remember before we get there, but in 1994, that Serge Monast, yeah, he had came out and he had told this. And I mean, at the time, everybody was like, wow, this is the craziest, outlandish conspiracy theory of all time.
Well, we'd already had a bit of fucking, what's Jesus Christ, me, Art Bell.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
What's the name of that? Oh, my brain. Come on now, brain.
In the art, yeah, that's why. And I
remember Art Bell's name, but
yeah, you passed it on to me in the morning with Art Bell, or no?
In conspiracies. Hey, welcome to Conspiracies.
It was in the mornings though, but I used to listen too when I used to. What was that called? Yeah,
Come on,
you passed the brain fart over.
Come on, Steve.
I got nothing.
Art Bell, and AM, something AM.
Coast to Coast AM.
Yeah, boy.
There it is. I was
Fucking
about to look it up, and I was like, I can't believe I don't know this, because that's also what got me into this stuff too. But Coast to Coast, Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the thing is that it's weird because we see ourselves going down these conspiracies, but then like even in 94, when this Serge Monast talked about this and it was a crazy, outlandish thing. Now you fast forward and you're like, holy shit, this is actually being pulled together somehow. And I don't know a timeline. I don't know, obviously, when it would come to a full, like, completed plan. Obviously,
probably at the eve of a nuclear war, I would imagine. This seems to be the
but the
narrative
pieces
that aliens
are coming together.
They tell the stories of aliens coming down to like silos where they keep nuclear missiles and going, and fucking decommissioning the nuclear warhead part, and like that's the Stephen Greer witnesses. They say, like,
I remember I was in a Air Force base in New Mexico, and the craft came down over where we stored the nuclear warheads and just hovered for a while, and then we found out that our equipment was disabled, and I'm willing to testify in front of Congress about that.
And it's like, this fucking ancient dude is like, when it came down, it's weird, man.
Well, and that's the thing, is like,
keep doing that, so.
It's, they had the cover up for a long time, and then it's like in the more recent with like the Tic Tac UFO caught by a naval aircraft, everything else. It's like, it's almost like now they're gonna drip feed. Okay, there is extraterrestrials, but this is just to get to the point of where you can understand when they attack, we're saving you and we're the fix. So it's almost like we covered it up until our plan got to the point of where we'll be able to let you believe that there's UFOs, or at least let the Pentagon say, hey, we don't know what these crafts are, but they're real. And then get to the point of, this hologram UFO attack, and then they save us and cause chaos and play on our fears.
Yeah, it's the Hegelian dialectic. They create a crisis, and then there's a reaction from us, and we go, oh shit, what are we gonna do? And then they offer
Solution.
the solution. So like it's happened so many times over
And
history.
yeah, and then this one you can see actually really coming to a point. Before we jump right off religions, because and I don't know, maybe some of the fans have the same question, but this one's more me to somebody that's researched a lot. I know that you went through hours and hours of different kinds of topics and research, but
So
on the
many.
Jesuits.
I don't know fuck all about the Jesuits, man. I know you said it to me in the little hither and thither we had before the show started. I could tell you, what I could write about the Jesuits should fit on the back of a postcard. I know very little about them, if I'm honest. I do know they're at shenanigans. I do know.
I was going to say they have a lot of different places that they've come up in history, but I'm not going to get into too much about them. I just wondered if that you maybe had a take on it. I always kind of thought, how a lot of people are going to hate that, but how the Jews have so much control in a society where they are only 0.2%.
This is like,
they are. There's always some critics.
CEOs of many companies.
Yeah,
like depends on the kind of stank you put on the word Jew. Like if you're just like,
well, and the thing is, I just meant the overall control.
There are many Jewish people who are CEOs of very successsul companies. They're like,
well, I meant like even in the world,
Jews.
And so I kind of thought the Jesuits.
Come on, Jake.
I didn't mean like in a bad thing. There's Jewish people that have a lot of control, but in a population,
moment, bro.
But in a population with 0.02% being Jewish in the world and only 2% being Jewish in the United States, it seems like a very lot of control that you wield, and even in just the entertainment industry, whether they're leaking information or not, but.
You say a disproportionately overrepresented.
Yes, that's what I meant to say. It's exactly what I meant to say.
Overrepresented.
But
I mean, look at is it a fact that are we doing this? Is this going to be the clip that's going to cancel us all? When you look at it,
well, I was getting to the point of this Ignatius Loyola, which is the founder of the Jesuits. He was a practicing Jew, and then came into the point of tried to cover his activities and went to Rome and started the Jesuits.
So I do know about Ignatius Loyola, and I do know about the origins of the Jesuits in the tiniest amount, like as much as you would know from Catholic school or whatever, right? But the fact that there's a lot of these people were converted over from other religions, including like Islam, Judaism, some of the top level dudes now in society, we don't even know because they're secret Scientologists or they're part of the Baha'i religion. You know Baha'i? Yeah, I've heard of it. Part of Baha'i, or they're part of, some certain sect of. Yeah,
say the organization like and sects, they definitely splinter off in all kinds of different directions.
And I remember in very early conspiracy days, for me, you find out about the Freemasons, and you're like, oh, a secret cabal of men who wank each other off in a circle.
Yeah, and supposedly created by the Jesuits, which
is the thing. So
a lot of these organizations were, and the thing that I'm not going to get into all of it, but I mean, John Adams, our second president of the United States, mentions them. Samuel Morse, an American inventor of the telegraph, he mentions him. Adolf Hitler says that's where he gained a lot of his knowledge on how to control people. Napoleon said they were one of the most dangerous organizations in the military organization, not religious. I mean, and the list goes on about 12, Abraham Lincoln, James Parton, an ex-Jesuit, Robert Breckinridge. There's all kinds of people through our history that mention this Jesuit order as the most powerful and scary organization known to man.
They're at the highest levels of Vatican control. We did a whole episode on the Vatican. It's about 7 hours, 40 minutes. Probably one of the longest episodes.
Yeah. I think that's the one I listened all the way through.
Yeah, it's a whopper. I do have a particularly Jesuit focused episode coming just on the Jesuits and Ignatius Loyola and the history of them. But it's in something like it's fictionalized in stuff like Da Vinci Code, let's say, or some of these old treasure hunty national treasure type movies, right?
Cage.
Where we've got to find
keys to Benjamin Franklin.
He had to find that treasure because all the damn mansions he bought, all the money trouble he was in.
I love it. I love that movie. I love the second one, and there's a third one coming. And God bless Nicolas Cage and every single fucking thing he does. I love Nicolas Cage.
I do too. Everybody's
Defend
giving
him
him
to the
shit
death.
because he's taken every role, and he had some
Motherfucker
interview.
did like 40 movies in 3 years, and
Yeah.
everybody else was sitting at home with
And he said, I
lockdowns.
just like the diversity of parts. And he goes,
Yeah.
but it also has to do with some of the money. I owe a lot of money.
Of course.
But he was honest. I was like, cool.
Yeah. The cocaine ain't cheap. So, the Jesuits, right, as a religious order, is pretty banal. Like their beliefs, no more than Protestantism and Lutheranism, Presbyterianism, born again Christians versus Jehovah's Witnesses versus. I was gonna come on like Bruce Buffer, like in the red corner, Jehovah's Witnesses. We hope they don't
Just
get
say it's like
injured because
celebrity
they
death
can't take a
match.
blood transfusion. Like these kind of things. But all of these different sects of essentially the same flavor, right? There's little differences within the belief structure. Whereas Jesuits are coming at it from, I think they're like the HR department of the Vatican rule. So Vatican is technically like Roman Catholic Church, but they have much more control than that because they're kind of like a top
I
down.
was going to say, I felt like they
organization
kind of took
structure.
over the Vatican in the long run.
And this is the thing. So the Jesuits then had a lot of influence over the Holy See and the appointment of the College of Cardinals. They had a lot of influence then over global, what would you call it? Say global warmongering, or global imperialism, global subjugation of black and
I was going
brown
to say, when you
people.
get down to like really researching them, it's not even, it seems to no longer really take a precedence of belief or religion. It's just like, it's straight, I want to control and run everything in this world at any cost.
But they are one of the most, next to Scientology, probably one of the most opaque organizations. You can't, they're there and you see them and they have their names on the fucking headed letters, but you don't know who's who. And there's like very, very high up businessmen who are, do you know the way you get these lads that go get they go through these ceremonies of like, they're getting knighted as a holy knight of the order of, what's it called? The Holy Knight is of an order of, there's the Order of Ignatius Loyola. There's the
Malta or whatever.
There is an Order of Malta, but I think they're more to do with
Knights
like
Templar,
ambulances and shit. No, there's like the Order. Fucking hell, what's the name of them?
Well, they were the
Knights, not the Knights of Columbus or the Knights of Columbanus, or they have these. They're like lads who donate loads and loads of money to the church, and then like they get a knighthood, so they're like a holy knight or whatever.
I was one for like,
comes out and does.
I was one for like 3 weeks. I was talked into it when I was a young adult, but before I kind of got away from Catholicism, and I don't really even know what their purpose was. I mean, they just drank beer and then they like collected money. Collected money and drank beer. I mean,
Freemason or a Jesuit?
No, it was the Knights of Columbus.
Oh, Knights of Columbus. Yeah, well, that's the thing. So you get indoctrinated into these organizations, but what it is just like fraternal brotherhoods of obfuscated control.
Well, I could definitely see like the Masons that started, and you get to a level of it's no longer just drinking beer in the brotherhood. It's more of the secret stuff that, once you get to a level and you earned your right in that brotherhood, that, you obviously know more information and what their ultimate goal is, I'm sure.
But the thing is there an ultimate goal, or is it just a bunch of lads trying to make as much money and fuck as many bitches as possible? If bitches fucking is in your wheelhouse, maybe it's other types of fucking.
Yeah.
And then you find the lads who are in.
I think it's all of the above.
You make your own lodge of just guys who want to fucking.
Well, I think it's kind of like in the government when you segregate different jobs and whatever else. So you kind of separate everything. So you don't know the whole big picture, but your job is to do this and to stay loyal and to keep the secret and move forward, finding new men to join this group and continue that process to where eventually it gathers to be one massive organization that everybody has their in particular jobs that are probably, given to by the hierarchy of that group. I don't know.
But
Maybe.
it is very much controlled. Like
Yeah.
There's a reason the head of it is in Italy, because these motherfuckers like, oh, you're in the Jesuits now. Hey, Tone, this guy over here, he wants to be a Jesuit. We gonna, I'm a made guy. They give me my collar next week. Oh, like this kind of shit, right? But in my mind, and this is like a little bit of a kind of I'm trying to find the words of it now as I tell it to you, right?
Right.
In my mind, there's a certain attack now on, say, nationalism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Feeling patriotic and proud of your country and trying to defend it against agents of destruction, both foreign and domestic or whatever it is, right? Like that is now seen as a moral crime, right? To be over patriotic or to be wearing an American flag, there's a kind of an underground consolidation of opinion that seems to say if you have an American flag anywhere, you being a patriot, you are also conflated with Nazism, with extreme right wing culture, with the subjugation of black and brown people, because America was founded on the backs of slaves, and because of that, every success that they have is undermined by that. Some people call that kind of thinking, or that kind of construct of ideology, cultural Marxism, right? Which is trying to take the lower minority of opinion, the Bolshevik opinion, is trying to topple the Goliath of common culture by injecting itself, infiltrating.
Well, I mean, you see it a lot
from inside, and
you see it a lot
collapsing
when
the structure.
9/11 happened. It was, the patriotism, because, a drastic event happened. So we gained together and we're all, America, proud America, and whatever
Here we
else.
go
and
off
so,
to war, though. That was the thing.
Yeah,
So,
they blame it on a terrorist. And so every time you saw, any person that was out and about, it was your fault, if they were, Arab of any sort. And you have no idea what you're even talking about, but that's what was portrayed.
So you just run right into it.
Yeah, because you believe it, because you're believing in this, nationalism against all else. That America is the greatest country in the world. Not only that, though, and I'll get to I'll come back to the Jesuit, the religious, the Vatican, the connotations in a second. But the concepts that surround warring nationalism are usually, and have been in the past, I think this is the fucking craziest phrase ever, we're spreading democracy. We're spreading democracy by blowing these motherfuckers up.
Yeah.
We're going to their country and saying, you're not doing it right, so we're going to kill you until you agree with us. Right?
Yeah.
Now, what does that sound like on a global scale? Like when you look back over all of history,
Well,
that to me sounds
dictatorship.
like an ideological crusade.
Yeah.
And years ago, when the Jesuits came and took over the Vatican, there was the religious crusades to expunge the planet of, non-believers, of heathens and heretics, people who were claiming that their God is the best God, when we all know that our God is the best God.
Right.
Our God
is the greatest God that has ever been. We've got the most tremendous God. He's so merciful, apart from all the plagues and the cancer, the killing of the children, the storms, the famines, but he's the best God we've got. Okay, he's great God, tremendous.
And they will go to another country, like not only like defend it in their own country and go, we're all class, aren't we great? Let's stay here and believe this shit. We're like, no, this is too good not to share. So tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go to North Africa, and we're going to go to the Eastern Middle East, and we're going to kill children in their beds. We're going to fucking slaughter, peasants and farmers because they're brown of skin and therefore presumably not of our religion. And then when we've done all of that shit and killed a load of people, we'll take over that land area, which, I mean, guys, it just so happens to be coincidentally very rich in like natural resources and minerals.
Yeah.
Just the
Like,
fact that all those people who lived on it were not believing in our religion, that's the reason we were there. And it just so happens that God then blessed us with the gift of finding loads of fucking diamonds and gold and shit in the ground where all these heathens and non-believers lived. I mean, God blessed us with this shit. Yoink. Let's take
Yeah.
it, right? So that's how empires were made. And then they went, you know what? That's a fucking great idea. Let's do that again, but in Africa. And then they all went to Africa and they tried to spread democracy and religion together. And the Dutch, the Belgians, the French, the British all went in and went, okay, which one do you want? Well, I like the sound of, what did you say it was called again? The Congo? I love that. It sounds beautiful. I will take that. Okay, Belgium, you can have the Congo. What about you, France? I like the Nigerian ones. They got big butts. Okay, France, you can have Nigeria. Like, and they just fucking split Africa up amongst themselves. The Dutch were like, yes, I know French. You have the Nigerian and Belgian. You got the Congo. That's great. We're not so much into the warm weather. So can we have like maybe the south or maybe the coast? We like the sailings. We like to go on the boats. So if we have some of the coastal ones, that'll be cool. Yeah. Okay, Netherlands, you can have all the coastal, and they just fucking split that shit up as to what they were good at.
I was going to say,
extracting.
if you look at history, African continent got the shit end of the deal somehow in the overall plan.
Everybody south of the equator got fucked.
Yeah.
Got fucked.
For
right?
sure.
So they started doing that shit and spreading democracy, but also spreading Christianity. The concept, and I'll bring it up to the modern day. The concept of ancient religious crusades, very similar to not so ancient, in fact, quite modern in the last 70 years, politically ideological crusades like World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the First Iraq War, like all the stuff that was going on in Kosovo and the Balkans, all of that, the Second Iraq War, Afghanistan, and now Ukraine, Russia, right?
Yep.
On the horizon.
Yep.
All of that is spreading democracy. That's the spreading of a homogenous Western/American culture, their flavor of democracy and law on a set of people.
I was gonna say, even in the banking, because prior to 2001, there was 4 countries that didn't have the central banking system. Well, there's 7, but
7, yeah.
4
Yemen
of them
as well.
Yeah, 4 of them were fulfilled in that war alone. So that it goes to, also this overarching
North
plan.
Korea, Iran, and Yemen are the holdouts.
Yeah. And North Korea, we already were trying to threaten that whole thing that if you test again, we're going after you. And so it was kind of already being played in to that whole narrative. Like, if we go there, it's because he was testing weapons without our approval. But in all reality,
in a couple of weeks in Ukraine, that's going to happen as well. There's false flags going to be shouted about, and everyone's calling it. Even fucking Biden is coming out going, "Come on, man, they're going to find nuclear weapons. That's what's going to happen. Come on, man. Of course, because we sold it to them.
Exactly.
It's gonna end up being this ideological crusade of."
Well, Putin talked about NATO, and NATO also, they said, was created by the Jesuits. Just another point in there.
Of course,
you can look it up. But NATO being horrible in their agenda anyway, he had said, if I let NATO become part of Ukraine, he said, they're going to come after me anyway, and which nobody wins. He said, I'm trying to avoid any kind of conflict, believe me. And obviously he's not one to be believed right off the cuff, but with what he said, it was like, he's trying to say, I don't have a choice. My back's against the wall. And if you let NATO become, or Ukraine become part of a NATO ally, then they're going to come after me anyway. And it's going to happen no matter what. So
I would say, why wouldn't you believe Putin? Why is there? Because I come back to the other stuff.
Well, I mean,
is a nice
he's
concept
smart.
that I want to finish the thought on.
Yeah.
But like, why do you think that Putin shouldn't be trusted?
I listened to him because he's very smart. The only thing is, like, just like any smart people and him being part of the KGB before all this, it, just manipulation of, all right, maybe we're thinking he's a good guy. But on that in particular thing, I don't see why he'd be lying, because he's like, if I do this way, it's going to happen regardless. Nobody wins. So, I mean, he's basically just saying straight out there would be no reason for that in particular lie. So
I find it bananas that they look at Putin, who's a very strong leader, very strong set of morals. Some of them may be skirting over the lines of like maybe impinging on some people's human rights, not least of all the LGBT community.
Yeah.
They're not exactly like super welcome, right?
Right.
But by and large, there's no riots in the streets in Russia. There's nobody, there's a pretty big wealth divide, sure, but there's no insurrections going on. There's no.
It's nothing like America. Our wealth divide's the biggest in the whole entire world.
But this is the thing. So when you point a finger out, there's three fingers pointing back at you. America is suffering from the greatest case of an anti-adromia that can be found. They are accusing everybody else of the things that they are guilty of themselves. They have people who are in political office that are using that power to make bets on the stock market and make hundreds of millions of dollars by trading stocks and then fucking changing the laws around the businesses of the stocks that they bought to make money. That's the shit that they sent all the mafia lads to jail for, like in the 50s and 60s and 70s. They're like, you're fucking manipulating the market, you're running the numbers.
Yeah, it's organized crime.
It's a racket. It's racketeering is what that is. Like you're fixing the fucking prices, and like, so these are
well, even the false flag events that lead into these huge falls. I mean, even like the MGM selling all that stock and then having that shooting, whatever else, and dropped, and then they bought it all back. And it was like, if you follow the money, you can see that there's something wrong with all these scenarios.
All of them. And then they're going around accusing Russians of being, criminals and so back to this concept that I was talking about.
Yep.
The patriotism and the nationalism and the democracy that they want to spread in other countries. At home, that shit is like completely unwelcome. It's a focus of derision. The mainstream media talk shit about American patriots in America, and yet these fucking war hawks on all these news stations are like flicking their nips and pinching their beans, going, oh, I can't wait to go to war against Russia and Ukraine. Like fucking Rachel Maddow is licking her own tits on the news, going like, I cannot wait. Yeah. Trevor Noah's fucking pulling the balls up himself under that table, going, oh Ukraine, like they cannot wait to go to war because it's some shit that they can fucking talk about.
That's why they're using the press to just release like, hey, we're not saying anything for the future, but in the next 24 or 48 hours, every American that wants to get out, because times are coming to where it's a threat. No, it's because you're ready, and you're just giving that warning because of the pullout in Afghanistan was so bad that you couldn't do that again. So it's like
they could, and they can,
and they will, but at least they gave the one little in 24 to 48 hours, get out.
So the concept of spreading democracy and spreading culture against the will of the country that you're going into, right? At home, if you're waving an American flag, you're a cunt in the eyes of these people. But if you're in another country waving it, you're a hero, right?
Yeah.
And they're really like pushing for this thing. And it just so happens that like Ukraine seems to be the crux of this oil and gas pipeline that coming into Europe, and Crimea River, that Justin Timberlake song and all that kind of stuff. Like that's all of that shit is totally fucking obviously
just fucking bullshit.
A grab, like like.
Well, I mean, you find that all the time. They throw shit in there.
More than Iraq in the early 2000s. Like Iraq had the oil. You're like, yeah, you came here, your daddy came here, and now you're trying to come back to get the oil. Like it was a joke on all the fucking nighttime talk shows. They're only over there for the oil, and everyone's going, yeah, they're only over for the oil.
And then we ended up back here.
Everybody knew that shit, and yet they were still for 20 years sending poor motherfuckers over to fight in this war and losing legs and arms and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
So think about when you were on when you were, if you were a Jesuit, you know, in the Vatican, signing these papers to allow British and French and Belgian soldiers to go and fight, or fucking Spanish soldiers to go and fight against the savage Arabs in the Crusades. You're going to Constantinople, you're going to Turkey, you're going to Syria. Seemingly the same. We're fighting over the same fucking area for like 900 years, right? So they're sending these cunts over in the name of God with the principles of modern Western society, right? Modern Western society that's good and right in the eyes of the law, and the law is the law of the Lord, right? Ratified by the kings of these countries. So the king is the head. He's the next down from God, descended from God, the bloodline of God, or whatever they believed. And they said the king has ratified this thing into law in the land, and we're all following the law, and it's God's law, and we're fighting for our Christian God and spreading Christianity, spreading our morals and values, and spreading our law onto these lands that have loads of fucking natural resources. And
Along with syphilis and
yeah,
spreading all that as well.
Yeah, they're fucking here. Have a bit of syphilis and a bit of Jesus.
Let me take your gold and you take my syphilis.
It's a good swap, right? So they go to these places that have all these brown Muslims on it, and then they fucking wipe them off because their religion is the wrong religion. So it's either convert or die, right? And let's think about the similarities between a religious crusade set by the Jesuits through the Vatican, said by the king, and it's the national armies are going to spread Christianity or spread their ideologies, to now when we're spreading democracy. The concept in that is that we are the best, but the people that we don't agree with are less than. They're Untermenschen.
Yeah.
They're savages. They're
third world countries, pieces of shit.
Barbarians. They're, you know, all these negative terms, all these derogatory terms.
For sure.
That shit is still that I am a good person and you are not a good person. It's in there deep, right? So when people are wearing a mask and they're going, oh, I feel like a good person, they're on a little personal fucking crusade in their heads where they're like, I'm doing God's work, or whatever I believe in science. And they've just transposed now this ineffable thing that they don't really understand, but they're listening to their religious leaders. They've just transposed God's word with the word of fucking Tony Fauci, who is like, you know, he's the next level down. Like science has spoken to him through a burning bush.
I'm getting sick of listening to that guy. It's like, why you would think, like, when you have these press conferences with the science and whatever else, that you'd have a group of people backing up this narrative, but it's just his face and just him saying, you know, 6 feet away, 3 feet away, 9 feet away.
Yeah.
You know, be segregated for 14 days, 5 days, this and that. It's like, why is it just him? Like, why isn't there anybody else that's backing this whole narrative up?
And he's one of the most historically fallible men of ever. Like, he's been around for fucking 30 years, and he's been at the forefront of so many
issues,
fucking shenanigans, debacles. And
issues
disasters.
is a nice way of putting it.
Of course, man. Why the fuck is this cunt still around? Right?
Yeah, I don't get that.
He's like a medical Moses that's coming down. That has been, the burning bush of science has imbued him with the knowledge. He's coming down the mountain with the fucking tablets, and one of them is an ivermectin tablet, and one of them is an hydroxychloroquine tablet, and they have fucking, you know, five what are they called? Commandments on each one, right? Thou shalt not take horse paste. Thou shalt not listen to Joe Rogan. But what it's doing is no more than with a religious fucking crusade or like a patriotic war, a spreading of democracy.
Controlling of information.
This is a spreading of an ideology that's destroying information. Lost Info podcast.
Yeah.
They're destroying information, deleting history, retelling the narrative with their own ideology at the heart of it, and they're doing it in real time. And from 2 years ago, I have a bunch of fucking links that I was collecting all of this stuff as it was happening, because I'm like, there's no point in shouting about it now. No one's going to believe it. In the face of all of this information, people were like, no, I'm still going to follow the rules. And I did follow a lot of the rules because I didn't want to be rude. I didn't want to be annoying people, because there's no point. It's not my fight. I don't want to be fucking fighting with everybody. I'm finished. I don't wear masks anymore. I'm not wearing masks anywhere I go. Anyone who wants me ask me to wear a mask,
Ours is
I'd
supposed to
rather
be
not
lifted
here.
on the 28th, so they don't even believe it anymore either. So,
But it's
It'll be
lifted
back in a
all
month.
over the place. They're still banging on about it in Canada, in certain principalities. In Australia, some have it and they're very strict, and some don't have it at all, and they're like, ah, fuck it, mate. Like,
I mean, Australia
because
was
they're
like the proving grounds, testing out some of this shit with taking people out of. You can only go 5 kilometers from your home, and only have one visitor, and it was
Which we
getting to
had
the
that in
point
Ireland.
like, holy
Ireland was
shit.
Ireland was the most locked down country. But look, I don't want to turn it into that type of a
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
I'm using it as an example to say
Right.
the ideology of religion, like that control that the Jesuits
Yeah.
had through the Vatican, and using religion as a fulcrum to get into people's souls, to get into that part in your soul and in your mind where you doubt yourself. They'll fucking live in that spot and
Oh,
say,
yeah.
you're a good person, but only if ...
Yeah.
And they put the operating system into you.
Well, and the way they did things, they were banned from multiple countries at one time, and
because they were too powerful.
it was
It's like
they
fucking-
got crazy.
It's like some Darren Brown shit, or it's like some fucking Paul McKenna hypnosis, mind control, like a mentalist, David Blaine shit.
Yeah.
Do you know? To come along and just be like, oh, Shazam, look at my hand. Now you're a Christian. You got to do what you're told. Like, I'm going to be in an ice block thinking about Jesus for 48 days. Like, who the fuck would let somebody have that much control over them? Answer, everybody. Because they want to feel like a good person and they were afraid of dying. And when they die, they want to go somewhere nice.
Yep.
Or they want to know that the people that they love when they die go somewhere nice. And these cunts came along and went, what's everyone afraid of? Death. Okay, we give an answer to death. We can own everyone.
Manipulate that whole set.
Brilliant
Yeah.
idea.
And they do it.
So
too.
that's what's happening now. Death is the big fear from Cerveza. People are fucking afraid of dying. And these motherfuckers are coming in and saying, we have an answer to dying. If you do these things, you won't die. I'm going to do it. And you know what? I believe in it so much. I don't want to die so much that I will fight anyone who disagrees with the edicts and the rules that you've set down in defeating death. And this is what people will go to war
Oh yeah.
and chop cunts
And
up with
they have.
swords. Chop
Absolutely.
cunts up with swords because they don't believe the same words from almost identical books. Let's be honest, the Quran
Yeah,
and the
right.
Bible.
I was going to say, even the stories of the deities is all. I mean, even stories of most religious beliefs all have the same core concept. It's just different characters
Same
that play.
story being rebooted over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And the same cunts with the same swords. It's just the swords are different shaped.
Exactly. And so that, I mean, that one kind of covered a lot of religion, and I appreciate that. There was a lot of good knowledge in there. The next one, I mean, we don't really have to.
We'll do another one on the Jesuits when I'm more educated. That was a very kind of broad strokes
Yeah,
answer.
but
I would love to know the specifics of their organization. And
I
wanna do
just
any
started
research
looking
and do an
into
episode on it.
Jesuits. I'd love to do one with you if you want to do that.
Oh yeah,
sometime.
let's do something. Yeah, for sure.
But then we get
fucking
into
crazy.
like elites and families and groups. I mean, that kind of goes into the
Yeah.
Jesuits. You got the Rothschild banking families. You got
Yeah,
all these different sects that branch off, and they're again little splinters, and Freemasonry, Knights Templars. All these people end up building up this whole conspiracy world of these topics, and then they all end up intersecting in the future of how they're still in play. How Washington, D.C. was made by the Masons. And if you look at the streets, it has the pentagon
in a pentagram and
right
shit.
behind here on your logo. And so, I
That's
mean,
not a pentagram, my friend. Do you know what that is? That's
which
not a pentagram.
the Merkaba?
It's from Thelema.
Hmm.
Some Aleister Crowley shit, that is.
Oh, okay.
That's the
I was going to say there's a
sixth-
lot of things in your logo, though. Not
a lot
that,
of things.
but that
lot of
I saw in my logo that I never noticed in yours until I made it this big behind me. By the way, those conspiracy guys, if you haven't seen it by any chance, you got to go over there and watch some of Gordo's shows because they're great. They're hilarious, and they're long, and they're informational and very thorough.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
We get deep into it.
So
Wait till
before we go
this.
any farther, actually, on this, what's one conspiracy that you absolutely don't buy into?
That I don't buy into.
Just a little break here in between before we move on.
Oh shit, man! Do you know what? Like, I'd love to believe it, but I just cannot allow me head to go in there. It's the flat Earth.
It's the flat Earth, huh?
Yeah,
That's
and then I look at stuff that seems so simply, easily explainable, and I'm like, oh yeah, oh no, I totally believe it. Like, we did a whole episode on it, and apparently, it was part 1 of 2 because I'm gonna have to go back and do all the new flat Earth science.
yeah.
I did dozens, if not, like, well, let's say dozens. I didn't do hundreds, but I did dozens of hours of research. I gathered up all the historical evidence, like the whole history of flat Earth, right the way back to the first writings. You know, the all these cartographers that were
Yeah.
creating maps and all this kind of stuff. You know,
Yeah, back in like 1700s or whatever it was,
oh
1600s.
yeah, back in like 1300s, like back
Oh.
right the way back, right. And all of these guys that were saying, you know, like the Earth is flat.
Yeah,
and
you
then
sail off the
changed
side of it.
Galileo Galilei, and they changed their mind, all this kind of stuff. But looking into the guys during the wave in the 19th century of spiritualism, where people started believing in ghosts and ghoulies and started believing in like extra dimensional, like like demons and creatures and communicating with the dead, and they had like Ouija boards, and they had like all these different excuses to like touch each other's knees under a table. You know, this kind of massively sexually repressed society that all got to get together, and you know, we'll all touch fingers on the table and titillate ourselves like some Pride and Prejudice shit, just getting the fucking jizz in your pants because you stroked a lady's chemise or something, right? And you're like, your petticoats are so soft, like, you know. And like the spiritualism thing was like, let's get into ghosts and ghoulies, let's look beyond ourselves. And it opened the door for people like Helena Blavatsky and Aleister Crowley, and
He was
John
a weird
Dee and
character,
these
man.
Very
That Aleister
Yeah.
Crowley, man. I want to do an episode on him only because just the odd practices. But I think that I mean, I don't know if that was he retained or got information from his practices, but nonetheless, the guy was strange. He obviously
He
had some
definitely did.
insight because
definitely
people
did.
were following a lot of his practices or whatever else. But some of the shit that he did was just like so bizarre. It's like, how could that
I would
result in anything?
Jake, I dare say that both world wars wouldn't be won by the side that was won without Aleister Crowley.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do an episode.
There's something
on that. Like, there's
he
some
was
magic
getting
shit going
something,
on
but
in that way.
I was thinking like some of the shit that I heard that he had done, like getting beat off for like 72 hours straight or
Yeah.
whatever the hell, not sleeping, and like making his assistant wake him up and just wank him until he was, you know, out of any kind of fluid, bodily fluid. I don't know what that would result in, but somehow maybe that, you know,
It
climax.
was just his way. It was his way to get into the other realm. It was
Yeah, and
he was put into like some kind of a hypnotic or
obviously
somnambulistic
I've
state.
never been in that circumstance, so I would never
Not
know.
even when you were in your early teens, you didn't
Yeah.
like spend 72 hours pulling your guts apart.
Yeah,
Like,
so I wouldn't know, but obviously there was something that to him that it worked. Or
this sex magic like is very real, and I think that's why there's a lot of people who are into this looking at stuff like, you know, the Lady Gaga, Marina Abramovich spirit cooking stuff, like all of this frazzle drip, fucking adrenochrome, like all of that shit. Like, there is something
there's something.
in this. There is something in it. There is something in the sex.
There
magic.
is,
I
and
don't know.
and like I said, I believe it. I just don't understand how that would gain you results of any kind. But then again, like I said, I've never been in that situation, and I want to
There's
say
certain-
unfortunately, but I mean, I don't know. It depends.
I'd love to have an assistant perpetually wake
Yeah.
me up over a 72-hour period and wank me against my will. I get you, Jake. That's on
Just for
your Christmas
research
list.
purposes.
Write it down.
Only
Of
for
course.
research purposes.
Of course. Wipe it off with a warm towel, you'd be grand. You're like, oh, just let me sleep. It's like some weird hazing for fraternity or something like that.
That's what actually, that is the kind of thought that I had. Like, just seems like maybe that's where some of these stories of fraternities and stuff like that came into play.
Oh,
like,
it's 100% that. That's why all the induction into these secret societies and stuff.
so perverted and weird.
System, the Greek system, they know that even if the sex magic is wrong, the act itself done in public in front of other people, makes a
the vulnerability
conglomerate,
and shit. Yeah.
makes a conglomerate of information where a bunch of people know a bunch of shady shit about each other, and therefore they're bonded for life, whether they like it or not. Through
That's true.
unless there's going to be a
Metaphorical gun to
whistleblower.
their head.
It's true. Very
Yeah,
true.
like So back to the flat Earth stuff. That
Yeah.
I looked into it, and because of this, like Blavatsky, Crowley spiritualism, John Dee, and these kind of people, there's a lot of casual spiritualistic or spiritualism activities going on, like parties. People that come over and go, do you want to come over to my party and have some strong tea and we'll do a Ouija board? Yeah, sure, why not? They'll do fucking tarot cards, and all of this kind of Eastern mysticism was being brought to places like London, and then obviously from London off to the east coast of America in the mid 1800s, because it was like predominantly inhabited by European descendants, English, Dutch, French, and these kind of things then happen to be, they go off into other types of beliefs as well. So they'd find, is the earth flat? And because I guess, man, they were fucking bored as fuck. Like, it's 1870.
Yeah.
What the fuck else is there to do? Like,
Yeah.
So-
Explore and whatever. And
go have a walk around. Like, well,
Yeah.
explore, like most stuff had been already discovered. Where was there to go but inside the mind? So and with all this new information coming from these far off lands like China and East India and stuff like that, they're getting all there's a imperialism is at its peak at this time. So they were getting all of these influxes of all these different cultures, and the information coming back was like, oh my god, that sounds like something that I thought when I was a kid, and blah blah blah, and they get into it. So the flat earth ended up being this penchant of a group of people, and they started doing all of these experiments, like there's an experiment they do on the river, and they have these like meter sticks, and they use a special telescope to see, is there a dip in
curvage.
the
Yeah.
meter sticks, is the curvature of the earth and stuff like that. So I did a whole episode on the flat earth, and I dealt with all of that.
And you
ancient knowledge.
don't buy any of it.
Well, I released it, and I said, I'm not into it. I don't believe it. All of that shit is poppycock. And I got fucking 200 messages back.
I bet.
Bro, you need to fucking inform yourself. Get Eric Dubé onto the show. All the that's bullshit. All that stuff that you talked about, that's all old school, like Flat Earth Society. That's actually, they said, that's disinformation. That's the information that the fucking government are putting online to dissuade people from understanding that the earth is actually flat. Gravity is a lie. We're actually living in its various densities, and that's why some stuff floats and other stuff doesn't float, because we're all actually living in some kind of weird.
Well, there was
wall,
that
right?
there was that guy on National Geographic that he was the one that did the research on the Titanic, and he went down to a place in the Gulf of Mexico, and he had said that there was a lake beneath the ocean, and it was some brine, and then he has video of it, and like, I guess the submarine would bounce off of this density of this lake. So it's pretty fucking wild. I'm like, and that's, even proof with seeing it. And he had said, I've never seen anything like it. And when we bounced off this different density of water, which he said, I've never seen water in water, he said you could see the ripples go out to the shoreline. And so that part became, and then that guy died, by the way, after he released that.
The worst case of suicide anyone's ever seen,
his
isn't it?
helicopter blew up.
Of course, man. Yeah,
Accidentally.
suicide by helicopter. It's
So
classic.
I was
Happens all
just
the time.
thinking, like, that was a little bit of information that he actually went down and filmed and explained, which doesn't make any sense to anybody. And then it's like, okay, I want to know more about that. Well, you can't. So, and that's kind of how that whole ended.
Scientists have found a lake under the sea in the Gulf of Mexico. Is this the one you're talking about?
I
Eric
believe so.
Cordes,
Yeah.
associate professor of biology at Temple University.
Yeah, he
it
was
one
the
of the most
one
amazing
that-
things.
He was
deep
the
sea.
one that was on the discovery of the Titanic, I believe.
You go down into the bottom of the ocean, he says, and you're looking at a lake or river flowing. It feels like you're not on this world. The lake within the sea is about 5 times as salty as the water surrounding it, and it contains highly toxic concentrations of methane and
Yeah.
hydrogen sulfide, and thus cannot mix with the surrounding sea. You see, flat earth people will be like, yeah, man, it's all about the densities. And science people will
I
be all
just
like,
find
"Yeah,
that it gives a little bit of, they obviously knew that this existed. And then, when that little bit of information comes out, it's like, let's withdraw that, because we can't have anybody looking into that, because then it leads into other things of, lost information, which it doesn't lead into flat earth by any means, but it's just one of those things that, you know, you hear about in Genesis, the firmament. And I know that, you know, the flat earthers are all about the firmament. It talks about oceans above and oceans below.
Yeah.
That kind of leads into that part. But either way, it's lost information. But if we could gather a lot of this and like do these expeditions without being like, you know, sanctioned by the UN and whatever else, and we could just get to the bottom of it and it'd be good. But the fact that they tell you can't go down past the 60th parallel and they don't want you to know about this dense lake beneath the ocean and other things, it's like, all right, well, obviously you're hiding something, but what is it?
I would imagine the reason that the oceans are not as explored as, like, we know more about space than we do about our own oceans. I think it's because there may be something else living down there that they don't want us to
There
find.
has to be.
There has to be, but it's not like a flat Earth situation. And
No.
to be honest, I think no more than like QAnon. Your fucking show is cancelled now, by the way. No more than Google is just like, what did he say? Switch it off. No more than QAnon was, I feel, a distraction for preloaded Christian conspiracy theorists to believe in an ineffable deity, like a Christ-like deity, like a JFK Jr. returning from the dead to save the world from, you know, evil satanic child molesting interdimensional pedophiles or whatever. It was a very well constructed puzzle of information set online to distract people from what was really happening, because it was something they could action on. There's something that they could actually like go and find information on and put the names onto the initials that were being put in these Q drops and all this kind of stuff. Like, it was a distraction piece for a lot of really smart, involved and heavily belief stricken or belief laden people. It fucking took them out of the race, man. It took them out of the intellectual melting pot of analysis and you know, news consumption and all that stuff. They were living out in the fringes, expecting like JFK Jr. to come back on January 6th and save us all from a Biden presidency and the blah, 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 right? No more than that, I think the flat earth theory, to my own belief, and I haven't looked into the new stuff as heavy as I should, and I will admit that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll be coming back in a year's time going, boys, you know, the earth is totally flat. Like, look into it. Like Eddie Bravo going, just look into it, right?
Yeah. Well, he's pretty aggressive.
Very, very. But believing the flat earth will choke you out.
Yeah, exactly. Like it. Yeah, there was. It's like, don't even question. You're wrong. Like,
but this is the thing. So I think the flat earth is a distraction piece for a lot of very intelligent and research oriented people, that instead of looking into the flat earth and the history of you know, cartography and looking into all of these different types of sciences and examining, you know, fucking satellite imagery and debunking like NASA 3D imaging and CGI constructions of what the earth looks like, and, you know, putting all this shit out here, that they wouldn't go into looking into other stuff that would actually be fruitful, that would actually be truthful and fruitful, and try and find all these lost documents, you know.
I could see that muddy in the water story, or going somewhere else. Look, you know, like
and it's keeping them busy.
Look right while we're doing something left.
Look left and go right. That's
that way.
Yeah,
what it is.
For sure. I don't either. I mean, I'm still on the globe. I'm still on the globe theory, but I mean, I've heard some compelling things. I can't say either way, so I just don't ever really comment on it. But I was wondering, what's one that you just don't buy into?
Yeah.
I was just wondering which one you didn't buy into, because I mean, there's always one that stands out that's like,
do you know what? I'd love to believe it, because it seems like such a fantastic rabbit hole to go down, and there's so much confirmation content there that you can just drop in and be like, oh my God, and there's fucking miles and miles of rabbit hole documentaries, documents, books, fucking YouTube channels and podcasts and all this stuff that you'd be like, oh my God, I fucking totally believe this. I think what flat earth represents is a disbelief in the reality that we actually live in. That is like, there's no way the world could be like this. Everything, like, flat earth is the ultimate lie.
Yeah,
like, it's the whole world is a lie.
Carried it.
I think that's what. Yeah, and again, like, I think that's why a lot of these, you know, serious conspiracy theorists jump into that. It's because, like, if I can prove this one or get on this one, then it is the ultimate lie because everything would be changed.
Yeah, I think there's loads of more.
I'm gonna step up out of here on this segment. All right. I got
Okay.
a place to be, so I gotta get off.
All right.
So it's nice talking to you, gentlemen. I'll be more prepared next time. So that's my apologies.
All right, bro.
Well, let's take a quick break. I'm gonna take when we had took a break. We came back. Basically, we were at the families and groups and sects and everything else, and now go into like the alien cover-ups, UFOs, and government projects. I kind of lumped those all in one. But we just did a Majestic 12 episode. I know you've done one as well. And the Majestic 12, there's just a lot of non-believers in that group, even in the conspiracy world, based on not enough documentation or proof that they existed, which like I had said before, that's their whole purpose, is to stay secret as a secret organization. But at that same time, in 1947, we have a lot of things going on, which was Project Paperclip. We had the Roswell thing. We had Majestic 12 coming in, possibly as a cover-up, because we knew that these technologies or crafts existed, maybe due to going over in Project Paperclip, finding out what the Nazis were working on, and realizing they knew. Project High Jump, when Admiral Byrd had went down to Antarctica, he had spoke of a craft that could go from the North Pole to the South Pole within seconds. And so you see that kind of plan or timeline played out to where something was happening in 1947 to where everybody had to ramp things up just a bit. And so,
yeah, I mean, between that and the Antarctic Treaty and the what's the name of the treaty where they all said if they find any UFOs in their country that they have to give it up or destroy it or whatever. I can't remember what that was called.
yeah, I don't remember that one.
Fuck, my brain can't remember now. It's too late at nighttime. But yeah, so like Project Bluebeam, we just released an episode on it, Jake, and we go through the whole Serge Manasse thing. We go through the whole, and as we talked about now, like we go through the whole religious belief structure. We go through the different mechanisms that Serge Manasse claims in his document that they would try to impose upon us to make us believe,
Right.
force us to believe. And then that poor cunt ended up killing himself in the worst case of suicide anyone's ever seen as well, just so happens. But it just boggles my mind that 3 years ago I was looking at Project Blue because I have all these episodes all laid out for a really long time.
Yeah.
In a certain order, and obviously Cerveza put that into a kind of a turmoil where I wasn't able to get, because I couldn't have people over in the house into the studio to record, and I like to do it rather than doing it online. I like to do it in person, and it's kind of like a mild kidnapping. We get the people in the room and we lock the doors, and then 10 hours later we all come out like sweaty. We're after losing weight, like we've been in the fucking sauna.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, that's the show. Thanks. See you next time. Like it's all,
Yeah.
and
Well, you have longer ones than most people, so
yeah, but it's the conversation, like the shit that comes out is like we could record for 8 hours and I take 6 out of it,
yeah,
I come out with like between
absolutely.
6 and 15,000 words of notes. Sometimes some of the episodes had 20,000 words of notes. Like that's a thesis for a master's or a degree, like 20,000 words. And so we did this Project Bluebeam thing, and 3 years ago I wouldn't have thought that. I thought Serge Manasse was like some kind of Canadian poppycock merchant. These guys that come out in the early 90s with the proliferation of stuff like the X-Files and Coast to Coast and all of these things that were like, it was big business back in the early 90s.
Yeah. Well, Stephen Greer too. Dr. Stephen
Greer, fucking Independence Day brought it all to the fore and all this kind of stuff. So like this Serge Manasse guy comes out, and I thought, this Quebecy mischief maker, he's just coming out and saying some shit, like, and it's fun, and it's ooh, aliens, whoa, right? But then the stuff happens that happened in the last 2 years, and 3 years ago I would have thought, like, come here, if they put a fucking hologram in the sky and said that aliens were invading, some kind of War of the Worlds like Tom Cruise 2006 bullshit, like,
Yeah. Well, it definitely didn't seem. Well, I would say that when I first, like I said, again, the very first time I came across it, and I only came across the part that it was going to be a holographic UFO attack. I was just thinking like, I don't see how the fuck you'd ever pull that off worldwide.
Yeah,
But
like
the-
how would everybody get on board and
yeah,
all this
and
stuff?
then
Like
but then like
what
you start,
universal experience, every religion, every
yeah,
country,
and then you
every
have to
principality, every
portray it
Cor-
into every person based on their ideology, their beliefs. So you have to program it individually as well. But
yeah.
then, the thing is, like, after watching how you can control people with fear and whatever else, if this plan was to be true with Bluebeam, there's nanotechnology now. There's 5G towers that transmit
Yeah.
information. MK Ultra, where they've studied how the human brain works and everything else. I mean, let alone the stuff that we don't know. It's like, fuck, I don't know.
But
I mean,
even that's all conspiracy stuff. That 5G and MK Ultra,
yeah,
that's like very vast and wide and pretty like I don't want to say spurious because like I'm a conspiracy guy, but like pretty spurious.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can
right?
find a way that they fit into this plan, I guess, if you were on the side of creating the conspiracy, but at the same time, they are nanotechnology and all that is valid stuff that's like we can't even see programmable biological things that are they can fit in the side of a needle. So it's like in the eye of a needle. So it's like, if that's programmable, I mean, if you watch some like the new Spider-Man, I mean, he goes and touches that Octo guy and it all goes on to him. And he's like, well, now I have your nanotechnology, except for it was programmable by Spider-Man. So he locked him up with his own technology. And I was thinking, man, that seems kind of like what this whole conspiracy is, that this nanotechnology can be controlled from within you.
In my research, I have to find it now because I can't talk about it without knowing the answer. Give me just 1 second.
Yeah. Oh, well, another part that I thought was weird was, and I wanted to mention it, was in I think it was 1995, that hologram of Tupac
It's class.
at Coachella.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I rewatched that, I was thinking, holy fuck, man, that doesn't look like a hologram at all. That looks like he's there on stage. And then I thought maybe that's conspiracy, never died, and then whatever else. But then I was like, okay, well, maybe the technology is coming along, but we've never seen it since. We've never seen a hologram dead celebrity play a concert ever since. So it's like, why wouldn't we ever use that? Because that you could sell out concerts going to watch Elvis or whatever else, or Michael Jackson now, which he used it too in one of his videos. But it's like if you just use that technology, which we apparently had in 1995, you could sell out without even having to pay the entertainer.
Yeah, you just do, or like what they did with ABBA most recently, where it's like we're going to make a CGI version of ABBA when
Yeah.
we're in their prime, and you don't have to see what they look like all old and kind of a bit sad.
Yeah,
You just put like fucking super.
well, you could have 50 concerts going on the same night with this
Yeah.
technology and making a
There's
boat. But
There's
we
no
haven't seen it.
Celine Dion or Britney Spears or Elvis doing like 3 shows a night in Vegas and having to pump themselves full of amphetamines just to keep going. It's just like, fuck it, just throw a hologram of Elvis up in Vegas.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
just have to go and perform.
it looks so
forever.
good that it would work. You could do it. You could even
mean-
say it was a hologram. People would still go watch it.
Yeah, but I don't think it's that kind of thing.
I just kind of mentioned it because I rewatched it and I thought in 1995, if we could make a person on stage look that real, I mean, I could only imagine where we'd be in 2022 with the technology.
When was that Tupac on stage?
I
Hologram?
believe it was 1995.
I
I'm not mistaken.
very highly doubt. I think it was 2015.
There was 2014. There was a video that was done with holographics, a Michael Jackson video.
Yeah, I think Tupac at Coachella was 2012.
Was it? Or was it maybe with, I don't know what I was reading. It was 1995.
I think he might have been shot in 1995.
Maybe that, I don't know.
94. He was shot in 94. Yeah.
Well, maybe it was the kind of the whole story about it. I just thought the technology that we've never seen it again is weird.
Well, I think we've seen it. Like, there's loads of what's your man's name? Trent Reznor uses all that shit live on stage, all this holographic technology, and there's projections like in Vegas, and there's projections at certain concert venues and stuff like that, where they have the holographic base, and they make statues.
I was gonna
and they
say,
do all this kind of stuff.
Seattle did something with their with the Space Needle on New Year's when nobody could go out. They did a whole thing that was CGI'd on TV and
Yeah,
live.
all around the top of it. They
Yeah,
had,
it was pretty
fireworks and all
crazy.
this kind- And at the Super Bowl there the other day, they had a drone show that was pretty fucking impressive, to be fair. Like
Yeah.
it came down and looked, So we talked about all that in the show. Like, would it be possible to do that if each drone was fitted with like laser projections? Doing some shit like Jake Gyllenhaal in Spider-Man, Mysterio or
Yeah.
whatever, creating these hologram,
Yeah.
create a hologram enemy and then defeat the enemy in order to be seen as the hero. Like, that's the plot of that fucking movie,
Yeah, I
And,
was gonna say pretty much
so-
exactly what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, that's it, man. And it's the predictive programming. The thing I was going to talk about is called Claytronics, if you want to look it up.
Okay.
Claytronics is like this technology that you were talking about, the tiny particles. And,
Okay.
it's like some fucking. Did you watch the new Matrix movie? And they have.
Yeah, I did.
They have Morpheus. When they're in the real world, he turns into a bunch of black balls that can move.
Yep.
So that's what Claytronics is. It's programmable matter. It's like tiny little.
Yeah, like
tiny
nanotechnology.
little balls, nanotechnology that can be kind of programmed to take on whatever shape, and use an electrical.
Well, and that
impulse.
was what I found interesting in this whole part with the Bluebeam was even, which I thought, and I didn't even know at the time. When I was researching it just the other day, I was thinking, well, chemtrails have to play into this too, because if you're projecting into the sky, you'd almost need something that
Some
you could
reflective
use.
surface. Yeah,
Yeah,
put
and so then
aluminium into the.
So then there was that, beryllium noibate or whatever it's called. It's used for 3D technology, and that's
Yeah.
was in a some kind of document release of that's what's in chemtrails. And I was like,
So
fuck.
they're spraying the screen with which they'll project
Yeah.
the 3D hologram, possibly from outer space, because Elon Musk has 1,600
with the
satellites around.
Starlink.
Starlink, and maybe Starlink, while it gives internet to impoverished communities, and it's supposed to be able to give,
So I was
free
at
wireless
this.
internet to the whole world. Maybe it's not doing that. Maybe it's actually broadcasting a 3D image on the back.
That's what I was going to say.
these
I was at a bar.
chemtrail-
I was at a bar a few months ago, a sports bar, and they had this big dome. And so, like, instead of having, 400 LED TVs, this big dome, they were projecting from the back. So at anywhere in the bar, you could look up and see these
Yeah.
games being from the backside of it projected
It's like-
onto this.
It's like in the fucking the Hunger Games, when they look up into the sky and there's like,
Yeah.
when the
Yeah, yeah.
people die, there's like a screen and it shows like wherever you're looking, you just look up in the sky and it's printed on the sky. Totally possible. But the whole
Yeah.
point is the technology is there. The technology could possibly be there enough to convince people. But the thing is, like, you have to have people in a certain mindset where they want to believe, and that I think was the biggest stumbling block to a Project Bluebeam being successful.
Well, and that was,
And
in
3 years ago, I was thinking, there's
in
no
that
way,
part,
man.
in that part too, it was basically to create, a second coming. And that, again, that's where you'd have to have everybody buy in that this was a real thing happening. And then, I mean, like, again, I don't know how it would work, but telepathic electronic two-way communication in part 3 of this was to have a voice within you, within like your soul talking to you, saying that this was reality and this was your God talking to you, along with this gigantic, holographic show that's in the sky. To me, it's like, I mean, I know that we're way behind what our government and whatever else technology is capable of, but I'm like, man, that would be something to try to pull that
Well,
off. Would be
They
fucking
had
crazy.
technology. They had technology to be able to put audio into people's heads.
Yeah.
Fuck, I can't remember the name of the project. Can't remember the name now off the top of my head. But it was like experimented on. They were firing at like people in Russian embassies and stuff like that, going,
Oh, yeah.
kill yourself, like this kind of stuff. And it's all like 70s and 80s tech that they were trying to use, like microwaves and trying to use
But it would be hard not to believe it.
other technology. Yeah, I mean,
If you saw
done
something
weirder
that
shit,
meant
like-
something to you and then you've heard it inside, like I remember when I was younger and I asked for some serious help from who I believe to be my God. He gave me a sign, which was a bunch of, I was kind of in my head, I was kind of laughing, thinking like, give me, birds or something, like a bird come and tell you or some bullshit, in my head. And then it was like 5 a.m. when I was working this job and all these geese flew over. And then I was laughing, kind of like, oh, that was weird. And I was like, if that was my sign, give me another one. And they flew back across the building and scared the shit out of me. And I was like, oh, and I was asking what I should do. So I quit my job that day. I went on to what I believe that I was supposed to do. And so in that circumstance that you ask for something or you're praying or you see it and then a voice inside you or whatever, it'd be hard not to believe it.
And they have a very detailed algorithmic record for the last 10, if not longer, but definitely for the last 10 years of almost everybody on the planet who has some kind of electronic device. Like everybody has been just pumping their fucking information into this database. And if they want to have like a very specifically tailored message for every single person, which is what in the documents the surgeon asked put out, that's what he said. It's like there's a Russian computer somewhere and it has records of every single person ever. And they're able to give this like super individualistic or individualized telegrammatic message to you where they'll say like, oh, Jake, you remember that time that you were like jerking off after gym class? I know about that because
nobody was supposed to know about it.
I'm the alien overlord. When you told a priest, Jake, that's why they fucking know about it. But I'm the alien overlord, and I know that stuff. And I like, if you need a proof, like that's the proof. I know that you fucking use the.
It would be hard not to believe it.
Finger up your bum in the shower, and nobody knows about it, only you. And
if you believe to yourself that you're not insane or crazy, it would be hard not to believe that.
But the thing is, though, I think there's a lot of people who would have that happen to them and still be skeptical.
Well, I would.
Like 3 years ago, right? I would think that there's a lot of people that would happen to. They'd see some shit in the sky, but nah, son.
Yeah, I would. I mean,
the proof of that is how many people, when there was a global pandemic, there was people falling down in the streets in China with all of this stuff. There was people in hospital on ventilators doing fucking Instagrams on it. Oh, I can't breathe. Oh, like all this fucking
dying
shit,
in
like
the street
doctors,
bullshit,
the news, people falling down, fucking towers. Like. Oh man, I
it almost feels like that was a test.
I gathered up so much information and so much fucking footage and all these articles and shit from the start of the pandemic. Going like, I know this shit is going to come invaluable someday. Man, like, do you remember the fucking footage of the guys in white suits dropping hundreds of bodies into that island in New York?
Yeah,
going like the thousands of people that were dying in New York. They had to have like funeral trucks come along, and it was just like a bread truck but for dead bodies and all, and there was like footage of them putting it in. And then you go and ask people in New York, is that happening? And they're like, I have never seen one. And they're like, well, there's an island that they're bringing all the dead bodies to, like some kind of weird like Stephen King novel. And they're like, I've
never seen it.
I haven't seen it, never seen it. But they had the aerial footage on the news. So all of that shit, it may have been fabricated. I don't know. I wasn't there, so I can't tell with me fucking eyeballs, right? The pandemic made me know that there's a certain cohort of people that no matter what they're shown, they won't believe it happening. They won't believe it, right?
Yeah.
Because it, even like as evident as it is, they're like,
but then there's going to be that other half that do.
But the thing is, with Bluebeam, you need everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that there was a demoralization there of all of these people who believed, like there's still the holdouts, the lads in the trucks and the people doing all this stuff. There is still, but it's against this tyranny. It's against this like human-faced political elite class that they know this is the enemy and these are the people that are going, and the blah 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 blah. And there's such a fucking dichotomy. There's like a wealth divide, and there's like an ideological divide, and there's all these divisions, race divide as well, all this stuff, like economic, all this stuff, right?
For sure.
So imagine if all of those people were granted, the world would be equal. Here's your new benevolent overlords that have come from the sky, and they're like, I am Zorb. I have controlled this planet. I am back now after 128,000 years, and you have done well, my children. You know,
Yeah.
like,
Now
believe
conform
in
to
me
one
and-
government.
But yeah, believe in me and all your dreams will come true. And everyone's like, for real, yo? And he's like, yes. And all these, and like as a tribute, right? As a demonstration of his benevolence, like he's just like, who was the most hated? And it's just like, and everyone's like, I don't know. He's like, okay, I'll just pick one. And then just randomly on the news live with all of the fucking, you know, the presidents of all the countries and all the politicians and all that stuff. And he just goes like, and he just like vaporizes Nancy Pelosi. And he's like, I just felt that a lot of people didn't like her. Was I correct? And everyone's like, yeah,
Yeah.
fucking long
That,
live Zorb.
that would
Like,
work. That would work.
and all of those people be like, oh my God, fucking can't believe it. Brilliant. Amazing. So like Zorp is going to come down and do that shit. If it's the right answer for everybody, I feel everybody will toe the line. But it just has to be the right answer for everyone. And I don't think that there's people in you know, the
So you're saying that you don't think they'll be
Let's
able
say
to
the-
pull this Bluebeam off?
I think they absolutely will now. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, you're going the other way.
After this whole pandemic thing,
Okay.
before it, I didn't think.
Oh yeah, I'm on the same.
I thought there'd be too many people that would disagree. But now, after this whole thing over the last 2 years and seeing how people actually reacted, because we haven't had like we haven't had the fomentation of a civil war in our modern Western society. Like 1860 was the last kind of civilish type war that, you know, in Ireland you had a little bit of a kind of a civil war up the north, and the, you know, the IRA, the Protestants and Catholics kind of thing, like, but it wasn't. I mean, it'd go on the global news now and again. It wasn't like a fucking huge like culture ending skirmish or anything like that. It was like, you know, it was what it was. You had the British Empire having to fucking retract themselves, and obviously like World War I and World War II were massive over the last 100 years. But since wartime, let's say even take 1945, World War II. Since that time, there hasn't really been this culture-ending threat. This Western society, like a society-ending event.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic comes along, and it's like this could be the end of our society. This could be the end, like the threat of like the end of civilization.
Oh yeah, and then it was
After
worldwide.
20 years of zombie movies and 20 years of fucking disaster movies and you know, all of that shit. Like, I'm sure like people would believe it if it happened. If a fucking magic man came out of the sky and said, I will grant everybody's wishes no matter what you want, everyone's going to get everything that they want, all you have to do is ask and believe in me, they'll be like, okay, cool, because it fills that part.
I was gonna say it might not even take the staged UFO attack and the scare and chaos. It might not even be that.
Yeah, I do think that there is going to be some shenanigans. Space Force is something to work on.
Well, and the first part of that plan was to artificially create these earthquakes that opened up basically new knowledge and whatever else to disprove the religions beforehand, and possibly bring in the new one.
Movie, The Tomorrow War, is a very
that's a crazy movie. I liked it.
Yeah, really good movie, I thought. Very prescient concept, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Global warming melted the ice caps, uncovered this fucking ancient spaceship of deadly aliens that were sent here to destroy us, but they got kind of usurped, and our society
and science fixed it
despite all odds.
Science fixed it. Found
yeah, so like of course that's going to happen. I do think like guys like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson and these guys that are looking back through history, I think it's a very, and like Lost Info podcast, I think it's a very convenient way for the powers that be to cover over the fact that they are in control and in receipt of very ancient knowledge, like the pre-Egyptian shit. Like there's a reason all that Freemason stuff is built around Egypt.
I was gonna say Mesopotamia and those clay tablets, all that stuff. I figured you have to, at some point, if information keeps being found, you either have to admit you were wrong and start over and be open to a new timeline, or wipe it out with something that you created that supposedly was found and complete start over.
And it's
reset.
an easy answer. A Bluebeam is an easy answer that wipes out any of that other stuff. And if it's controlled by the people that are in control now, as a way to like be the nail in the coffin of any kind of ancient knowledge disclosure, I think a lot of people that take it because it's an easier answer. Then going back over like the new Graham Hancock book, The America First.
Yeah.
Which is it called America First, or is that Trump's?
I'm not sure if not sure on the title, but I'm not sure on the title. But
a new book by Graham Hancock called America First. It's a great book. Everybody should buy it.
It's called America Before. That's what it's called, not America First. Fuck, Graham Hancock will have my guts for garters. America Before, where it's basically going like Clovis First. That's where I was getting mixed up. So Clovis First is like this ancient. It's the archaeologist's concept of the population, or it's the archaeologist's version of the population of North America, the original population of North America, how it got populated. They came across like the sea bridge from Europe, from Asia, and they kind of populated. And now they've found these like footprints, like, you know, properly developed human footprints, not prehistoric or Neanderthalic or any of that, like proper, you know, Homo sapien footprints in.
Well,
like
their timeline gets changed all the fucking time now.
60 or 70,000 year old igneous rock. As it was cooling, somebody stepped in it, like, you know, Ugg was here or whatever, and they're like, well, that's there for fucking 80,000 years, and it was buried under, you know, 100,000 years worth of soil. So it had, like, Clovis First is bullshit. And then he finds, like, Graham Hancock finds all these ancient civilizations after
he has a very
the rainforest fires in South America.
Yeah, he has a very compelling timeline for sure. Graham Hancock.
Yeah, after the fires in the rainforest in South America, it cleared out all the brush, and it showed like the foundations and the footprints of these huge sprawling cities that were able to take like 2 million people, all in these like, you know, Mayan golden cities that were like these were fucking hugely advanced societies that have just been forgotten. And they think like, where did the Mayans disappear to? It's like they all fucking got some weird Western disease and they died up, but they were massively advanced, and all
they all hopped on a ship and went to
went on the Merkaba into the future. But like this stuff is coming out now, and they're not changing the history books. Whatever fucking you know, whatever or whatever like hooks the archaeology community have in them, maybe the Jesuits, whatever hooks the archaeology community has stuck in them, that they're not allowed to change where humans came from.
And I see that changing because you can fund your own research now with you know, if you have like a YouTube channel or whatever else. And so now you don't necessarily need to be in the framework or be discredited or lose your job if you go outside that timeline.
There's no professorship or tenure that you're going to lose, or there's no you're not incurring the wrath of the archaeology community. You can just go and do some shit like Graham Hancock is working outside of the law when it comes to archaeologists. I've seen videos of him nearly getting into fisticuffs because he's coming along saying ancient Egypt isn't what you say it is, and all the Egyptologists are like, shut up, like this is my bread and butter and you're fucking me up, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see that
with lost info, like that's the shit that gets my dick hard. Like I'm totally on board.
We appreciate getting your dick hard.
That's what it is, bro. But like, you know, it's something that's covered up. It's something that somebody got their hands on some shit. You know, like an operating system, some ancient like iPad that had all the history of the world on it, and they went, "Oh, this is how we control the world. Cool. Destroy everything. Don't tell anyone."
I was going to say that
story.
That the reset is probably, you know, the burning of the Library of Alexandria, all that stuff, or just taking the information and putting it in the Vatican archives. But either way, take all the information out and you just start over.
And like even 200 years ago, and you look at the Tartaria thing, man. I have nipples as long and hard as Joe Rogan's when I look at that Tartaria stuff, and I've only been skimming the top of it. I haven't even delved deep, really, like the red brick, you know, the Tartaria mud floods, and the fact that there was an ancient civilization even 200 years ago. Like the technology that it took to create some of the buildings that still stand today, or some of the buildings that there's photographs and film of from like North America, Britain, parts of Europe and Central Europe, and like crazy tall, super complicated, ancient buildings
I was gonna
that are
say
dated.
even what was it the state fair that some of these state fairs that
Yeah, yeah.
some of these structures like
The world's fairs. Yeah,
yeah,
they
it was
built these cities
it
and
was
then just
crazy.
dismantled them again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all of this kind of stuff makes no motherfucking sense to me. How you're able to put something together like in 1820 at a World's Fair or 1840 at a World's Fair, and
Yeah.
the technology like they built something like that stands in the middle of Rome now, and is like a world was it UNESCO fucking World Heritage Site. You're not allowed to touch it, go near it. You're not allowed to take even a pebble off the brickwork because it's such an ancient building. It's so well constructed and all this kind of stuff. And they made that shit in like Chicago in like 1846. They made it over 1 year and it stayed there for like 5 years, and then they took it all down again. I'm like, that don't
Yeah.
make no fucking sense, you know?
It doesn't. Well, and that's when you start uncovering certain things. And I think, like I said before, and even in just this episode, that once you start uncovering things, there has to be a point where either we beat them to the punch and then we move on and really evolve and become a real society, or even like they said, a stage 1 or stage 2 civilization or whatever else, or you do a reset and start all over again to keep everybody in
Yeah.
control.
I did a lot of study about Neil Howe and the Fourth Turning. I don't know if you heard that show. I put up a
not.
live show from Manchester on the feed, but I did that as part of my live shows in the UK there a couple of months ago, and it's crazy the systems of like repetitive cycles that happen within human existence. So this Fourth Turning is like an 80-year cycle split up into generations of 20 years, and you know it starts with a period of great prosperity post-war, and it ends with like an economic crash and a global war, and it happens every 80 years, and the patterns match Western society to a T for about 400 years. So I'm
I was
like,
going to say,
Jesus
even
Christ, like,
the viral pandemic stuff is every 100. It's like they
yeah,
do a little clean sweep.
it's all cyclical, and trying to brush that stuff under the carpet to try and maintain the narrative. And all you have to do is have a bunch of certain families who were able to maintain the knowledge, who were able to pass it down to their kids and keep like a solid foundation of familial knowledge and wealth,
Yeah.
and then just fuck up society enough to break everybody else's familial ties, have people like be refugees and have to like flee their country and flee their heritage, flee their land, move to a new
I was
nation
going
with
to
a
say,
new language.
in America, you don't even have a lot of people
200,
have their
200 years
cultural
old.
values anymore. It's just, they don't even know.
But the people that built America have like an 800-year heritage.
Right.
Those families, they come
Yep.
from old Europe, and that knowledge is kept within the family. There's books there, fucking Vatican library level history
Yeah.
books in the houses of Rothschild, and
Yeah.
you know, like they know some shit that
They
they're
know a
not
lot of
allowed to
shit.
tell anybody else, or they don't want to tell anybody else, and that's the reason that they're the richest people on the planet. They're so rich that they're not even included on like the lists of rich people. That's how
Yeah.
rich they are.
Yeah. Money doesn't even matter at this point. It's more about the control and
That's the thing. So, like,
domination of this world.
that
For sure.
knowledge that they have is super ancient, and they all they have to do is just wait, just to wait like 100 years until some.
That's the
shit
thing
fucks
is,
up,
like, if you look
bunch
at
of people
this,
die.
yeah, I was gonna say, if you look at this plan as a, overall conspiracy, they're very patient because, I mean, as far as on a timeline, we don't know when it's going to happen. But if you look back, it seems like little pieces fall into place at the right time. 9/11, they came in, the Patriot Act was invoked. Now all the privacy, now they can start stacking information for these people. Like certain things just come into play, and you're like, well, if that was an overall plan, like that's pretty fucking smart, and it worked because
Yeah, I mean, there's even historical proof of a lot of that stuff, like the tech, like it said at the top of the show, like the technologies that the likes of J.P. Morgan and Rockefeller developed and then put in the hands of white Anglo-Saxon or Franco-American or Italian-American inventors that they had control over, that they owned the patents for, that they end up commodifying and conglomerating into these huge fucking trusts, these huge companies that were like like making billions before anyone had a billion. These cunts had billions. There wasn't even $1 billion on the planet, and one of them was a billionaire. Like this kind of crack. And of course they're going to be in power forever because they're never going to lose their money because they own the mechanism that society runs on, like TV, electricity, fucking you know, communications, like they petroleum.
I was
like
going to say the oil industry, pharmaceuticals, the list goes on.
They sabotaged any other alternative to transport, made transport essential for industry, and then fucking monopolized the fuel system with which every single transport vehicle
and now you see
on.
the agricultural and the health aspect being completely dominated by, you know, people such as the Gates and whatever else. And it's like, if you can control all that, there's really nowhere else you go as a human. Like you have to kind of bow down in the sense that if I want to be somewhat healthy or be able to go to a hospital or whatever else, and then you know, your food too, now that the food and the seeds are being patented, genetically modified, so you don't eat without their approval either.
That's the thing. And if you disobey and you park a truck on a street in Ottawa, they'll take away your money and your food and your ability to earn and your personage and your
to think that there's not an overall plan is kind of even more of a conspiracy. To think that if they've done all this and they've knocked out each section of how you live, quote unquote, freely, if there's not a plan, then that would almost more be a conspiracy.
I think we're back to that means mode of an opportunity. To have the means, obviously, because money is infinite. They have the opportunity because, you know, the world is at a weak point, and always, you know, if you want to make the best deal, you have to wait until the person you want to make the deal with is at a disadvantage. So the whole world has the handout now at the moment. They're after printing 40% or even more now of all money is printed in the last 18 months. We're facing the peril of
those numbers are insane
and bonkers. 7 to $10 trillion have been printed in the last 18 months.
That's fine.
And you're looking at down the barrel of one of the worst financial depressions in human history.
Yep.
What's the motive? What is the motive? And when you say total control, what does that entail? Like, to think about these
well, numbers, I think like, I don't know the Georgia Guidestones.
To think about these numbers, like $1 trillion.
Yeah.
$1 trillion is a
I don't think anybody even understands how much that really is.
It's an unfathomable amount of money, right?
Yeah.
Unfathomable. Like I've seen these videos of what a
comparison,
yeah. So they have like here's 1,000, and 1,000 is like they have one piece of rice, and then they have 1,000,000, and 1,000,000 is like maybe a bowl of rice of 1,000.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 1,000. And then they have 100,000, which is 100 pieces of rice. And you're like, okay, well, that's not a lot. And then they have 1,000,000, which is a bowl of rice, like a pretty moderate sized bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go to 1 billion, and it's a fucking 4-foot stack of rice. So when you're going, 1,000,000 is a little bowl, and then 1 billion is a fucking stack. You can only imagine like 1 trillion.
It's like a city,
a house-sized pile of rice. And they have all of this fucking money, right?
Yeah, it's the comparison, and I suggest anybody listening go and do that just so you can understand the amount of money in the last 18 months that's been printed. It's insane.
Crazy. It's insane. It's crazy, right? So like you have to look at the motive, like what is the motive? And people are trying to transpose some kind of weird conspiracy theories and some kind of like left field shit. Like whoever can come up with the maddest thing that finally ends up coming true, they win like the Conspiracy World Cup or whatever. Yeah. So there's these, you know, what do they want? And when you say control, that's a super like that's a very
I mean, I was going to say like
they already have control, right?
I think it was more like the population taken down, and then you know I don't know because it's really not.
Bro, why would they want the population taken down? There's no need for the population to be taken down.
I think it's more or less that they just don't want all these people on. Because from what I've read, they think of themselves as gods. And so they just don't want all those people on this planet. And so it's more or less like, let's just get rid of 95% of them. And then...
I don't buy that. I don't buy that shit.
I'm not sure.
Why don't they want that many people? Sure, there's loads of people that do more stuff.
I've thought about the end game many times, and I still come back and forth on myself. Like, that doesn't even seem like an end game. Doesn't even.
What's the end game? Sure, there's loads of fucking natural resources. There's more than enough space. There's more than enough room to house everybody.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's some bonkers fucking thing we were talking about. What episode was it on? Talking about global warming. On the global warming episode, there was mathematics done. I have to go and find the source feed to make it true. But there's mathematics done to say that every person in the whole world of the 8 billion people that are here, 8 billion,
right,
that could all live in Texas. That comfortably, everybody would have a house and a little small garden and all the roads and all the stuff that you could, with the entirety of the state of Texas, house every single person on the planet.
It's one of those things that's hard to believe, but I can see it. Because I mean,
but first of all, you have to think about how many people is 8 billion people. And then you have to realize how fucking big Texas is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, for everybody to have a house, you can house every single person on the planet in a place the size of Texas. And you could power the whole planet with solar panels in an array the size of Spain. So if you covered Spain in solar panels, you wouldn't need to burn another drop of oil or another piece of coal.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Well, they don't ever put emphasis on different energy sources. It's pretty much like, let's run this fucking oil industry to the last drop, no matter what.
But what I'm saying to you is, your point was they want to reduce the Georgia guys, some shit. They want to reduce.
I mean, I take that into account.
I don't see the rationale behind that. They don't.
I mean, I don't really see the rational point of any of it, but it's like I'm trying to figure out, from my conspiracy. Yeah, my conspiracy part is, what's the end game? What do you want out of all this?
So like, if you go through all the practical stuff, like, right, they don't need to reduce the population because people are going to be able to create food for themselves, blah blah blah.
Right.
Like, what? Surely there must be some higher power then. So they're saying, yeah, man, they're fucking lizards.
I was gonna say, are we going into reptilians?
Yeah, but that's the thing. They want us all to fucking have babies, and then we give them their babies, and then they scare our babies and drink their blood because, like, there is
a lot of kids that go missing every year.
So that we're into that fucking pedophile dark. Spirit.
Okay, we got there. We finally got there.
Yeah, it took 2 hours.
The reptilian overlords.
But this is the space that ends up getting filled that we can't answer. What is the motive for someone that has infinity money?
Mm-hmm.
They have a familial knowledge base that tells the true history of the entire planet, because it's kept, like, you have an unbroken line between your great grandfather and you, of knowledge that was kept written down, pictures, photographs, books, journals, letters, ledgers, fucking finances, and then not least, like, all of the fucking like the physical artifacts, like the things that were like, here's the Antikythera mechanism, here's the original, they made 2, and here's the real one, and it's kept somewhere in a vault in Austria,
right?
Like, this kind of shit, like, they know that stuff, so they're not trying to find that spiritual awakening. They don't need money. They already have power because they're able to do anything that they want and get it.
Well, they're worldwide, yeah.
So what's the motivation? What's their motivation?
That's what they want. That's where I'm at. Like, what the fuck?
I can't figure it out. If it turns out that all it is some kind of base, like, oh, we want to, like, scare kids, and then, like,
well, it probably is some kind of sickness too, though, because once you keep going, it's like, it's just perpetuated. Oh, what's the next move? I don't know. Let's do this. What's the next? I don't know.
But how then diminutive is that? Like, our whole society, everything we've ever worked for, every good, artistic, beautiful thing, or every, like, godly event, like your geese, or every beautiful moment, like, a first kiss, a baby's birth, like a chance meeting with an old friend, a wholehearted forgiveness for a sin long past, some kind of fucking beautiful moment that humanity shares one among the other. And then the next thing, we all find out that really our whole society is built as a farm for fucking alien lizard pedophile junkies who are addicted to this.
Or just like the movie Matrix, where we're in a pod, living a simulation, and they're just harvesting the energy.
Just harvesting our energy for some other fucking thing that's beyond our understand
Yeah,
and we were all worried about getting to work on time and are our clothes clean? Does
that one would really
like
suck to wake up to that reality. Pop out of the pod.
But this is what Bluebeam offers is the
Yeah.
answer. So when somebody comes along and it looks like a duck and it sounds like a duck, people are like, this motherfucker is a duck. Brilliant. We're given the answer.
There already
Take
is.
it.
There's a lot of leaks about the Anunnaki returning and all this and that, which kind of sets a stage for this as well. I mean, if you look at some of that
blue
kind of thing
and all that stuff,
it kind of sets a stage for a returning or a holographic UFOs or our makers, the ones that create our DNA. And then this earthquake shows that they did exist here, 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 and here. Here's all the proof. And then the return that's created by them. I could see where
the earthquakes can be artificially created through the HARP technology.
Yeah.
To be able to plant the artifacts.
Well, again, that's another thing that was a conspiracy at one time. And now we know that they do manipulate weather and they do chemtrails and they do. So it's like, I mean, that's a lot of effort if you just don't have an end game. That's my point. Like, it's like, what the fuck are they doing all this for? Because that's a lot of effort.
What are they doing it for?
Well, it's a lot of effort. It's like,
why are they doing
it? You got to have a reason to do all that, because you could just control the population by financial means, but to go through all the other stuff and the manipulation and the rituals and the spiritual thing. And I mean, we've seen, like we were talking about Alex Jones going to Bohemian Grove. You have the richest people, politicians, CEOs, whatever else, fucking dancing around in robes, chanting at an owl. Like,
why?
What the fuck?
Why are they doing that?
What the fuck are you doing?
What are they doing that for?
And that's and honestly, like that's
I
the
hate
most
lost info. That's the info that needs to be found the most, is the why are they fucking doing it? Like,
and the thing is, like, to be fair, it kind of excites me because it's like, even on the search of that information. But I mean, when you think of it overall and all the people that have been hurt in this wake, that part's not as fun. But I mean, just like, in the conversation, it's like, there's got to be a reason. So what the fuck is it?
Is it as simple as drinking children's blood?
And that's another thing. That wasn't even really that. What is it? The chrome or
adrenochrome?
Adrenochrome. Like, that wasn't even known until the last couple decades, and especially in the last 10 years, it's been talked about nonstop now, and it's a real thing. So it's like, is that the only reason?
Well, there's always been the legend of vampires. We just released a vampires episode a few weeks ago.
I listened to it. It was great. I loved it.
So like vampires have been around for ages, and it's been a constant fear. Like, is vampirism, is that
well, its origin started from somewhere, for sure.
Yeah, so I think it definitely could be something to do with drinking blood. Like, there's definitely like the sanguine, like the blood rituals. There's it's a melter. I could go off on another one.
It is, and then so like
I'm trying to wind down for the end of this now because it's midnight here.
Well, then if you open up too many doors, you can go for another.
Oh, look, stop, man. We got.
But that Dr. Carol Rosin, that girl that was, she was a professional relationship with Von Braun, which again was taken in Project Paperclip from Nazi Germany, brought over, headed up NASA, everything else. He had said to her that America always had to have an enemy. He has been right on terrorism. He's been right on other things. He's talked about asteroids.
Well, what he said, his quote was, first, if it was the Nazis, so the enemy, then it would be the communists, namely the Russians.
Yeah.
Then it would be the terrorists, and then man would turn against man. We would fight each other. People would fight in the streets, brother against brother. And then comes the aliens.
He said, and he repeated,
so we're at the
last card. The last card is the aliens.
Would be the aliens. So like, we're already at the point where the terrorist thing, that's like early 2000s, now we're at it where it's like terrorism is white nationalism. America has been infiltrated. Its culture is poisoned. We are a country of terrorists built on, the backs of slaves and the blood of innocents and
war criminals and everything else.
The core of the culture, according to mainstream media, has started to rot, and people are fighting amongst each other. There's civil war is on the cards, and just before that shit breaks out, it's the last card. Would be the aliens. Like, it seems like a perfect time to hit you with that.
And the fact that this is a guy that probably should have been in prison for a lot of the things that he whether he was forced to or whatever, participated in.
He's too good. He's
And
too
he really
good.
just wanted to get to space. I do believe that. But either way, he nonetheless looked the other way. He saw a lot of the stuff. He didn't go against it, and then came over here, not as a prisoner, but well-paid professional in our first space program and all this and that. I mean, even that guy that you don't want to listen to, he was trying to just throw out the warning, like, hey, man, America's always has to have an enemy, and these are what they're going to lay out. And as far as now, he's been right.
A system. I'm going to have to leave you after this.
Yeah.
But a system that I have maybe devised, and it's quite controversial, because what you have to do is accept the arguments and the motivations of the people who are considered enemies as your own, and search for that answer as if you are what people would call the enemy. So in order to find out what fuels a racist, you have to think like a racist. In order to find out what, makes an oligarchical, tyrannical billionaire do what he wants to do, you have to think like that person and really like get into it and kind of accept the abhorrent thought processes that somebody like that might come up with in order to figure out the answer. And it's hard, and some people don't want to think like that, or don't want to think that people think like that. They want to, live in a world where everyone is nice and everything's handy, and it's not reality, like, right?
No.
But a way that I'm trying to find these answers is to go like, what has been the most abhorrent? What has been the most pushed back against? What has been the most disgusted concept or set of concepts that have existed on the planet? And why were they so disgusting? And why were they eradicated or seen to be needed to be eradicated? And some of the stuff, like, we've done episodes on the KKK, we've done episodes on, like pretty nasty cunts like the Vatican, and why are they doing that shit, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out the why. The motivation is the thing that fucking gets my nips rock hard, right? Because that's what we're looking at now, like the how and the evidence and all that stuff with the internet. People can fucking at the tips of their fingers, the answers are there for the how, but the why. And I'm looking at like Hitler and the Nazi occult, and their whole modus operandi, their whole fucking mission statement was, we have to use esoteric magical knowledge to be able to combat something they saw as an enemy, something they saw as a toxic cancer upon the planet that they needed to purify from the gene pool, as it was told to us. They needed to purify, scourge this terrible force from the planet, because they were out to do bad things in the minds of the Nazis, right?
Right.
And I have to think like, okay, sure, there's something so bad about Nazi Germany and about Hitler and about swastikas and all that stuff that you're not even able to say it. You're not even able to have a swastika.
I was gonna say a swastika
public.
though, its actual meaning in times before wasn't for an evil purpose though.
It's a Buddhist sun symbol, sure.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, now, because of its connotations, a swastika on a white circle on a red background, if you wear that in public, like, you can be like arrested and fined in Germany. If you do the Roman salute, the Heil Hitler salute in Germany, you get fined a bunch of money, like 900 quid or something like that. You get arrested. Like, the suppression of the information, the real information around Nazis and their motivations. Because we're taught in school, like, yeah, sure, annexed Czechoslovakia, Polish, fucking Holocaust, concentration camps, the gypsies, the disabled people, fucking, any kind of ethnicity, especially the Jews and all this kind of stuff. And they don't ever tell you about the fucking mad shit that were up to, like going to Tibet and trying to commune with the monks, like sending cunts out like Indiana Jones looking for the fucking Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant and the spear of Lorenzo's spear that pierced the side of our Lord when he was on the cross, and looking for all these fucking magical items, looking through all this dark fucking magician shit. They had Rudolf Hess parachuting out of a plane into Scotland because he was supposed to have a magical fight with Aleister Crowley. Yeah. And they were going to decide the fate of the war, and he ended up getting nabbed and ratted them all out to English intelligence. like sending cunts to the North Pole, sending cunts to the South
Yeah.
Pole, trying to find the inner Earth. Like, what was all of that stuff? That, to be honest, like, is the fuel for a lot of fairly benign.
Well, I was going to
conspiracy
say that
theories now.
that mystery school that you find a lot of these people had went to. I don't know where it lies, but I mean, Tibet seems to be where all these people disappeared to. I mean, even Hitler sent people to Tibet. I mean, Jesus supposedly disappeared to Tibet,
Yeah.
and then they come back with, you know, either some knowledge or magic or whatever the fuck, and then everybody and it creates a new
Blavatsky and all
story.
of those, Crowley and all of those as well. Like,
Yeah.
Hitler sent all of these motherfuckers to like Egypt. They sent them to South America. They sent all these people all over to gather all of this like ancient knowledge. And the people he was fighting were trying to stop him from doing that because they didn't want him to be in power because they would be disenfranchised. And it was like, and then they got to have a PR campaign to say that he was the worst person ever, and he, you know, Nazis are terrible and blah 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 and all that stuff. Like, sure, accepted, yeah, not a great bunch of dudes, but you're.
Well, I mean, the motive still lies the same as that.
What is the fucking motive,
Jake? Well, I think on that, like you had said, I feel that he thought a certain people were going to be a threat to the world or whatever else, and obviously he went to any extreme in his specific conquering of Germany, but and over there. But overall, I don't know. I just like, again, I come back and forth on it can't be for power and control. It definitely isn't about money because they have all that, they control all that.
Yeah.
And then it's, you know, and then they say maybe it's to save the planet because we know we're destroying it, but they write that off. So it's not about that. They don't care about
that. But it
that.
was an ideological war. He was fighting an ideology. It wasn't just like, I'm going to take over this country like the lads before him, the Austro-Hungarian
Yeah,
Empire,
no, it was
the Prussian Empire, the Ottomans, the Byzantine Turks, the Spanish at one point, the Swedish at one point, the Russians, the Mongols, Alexander the Great, and the fucking the Macedonian Empire. You're talking about the what were those lads called? The Moors, like all the Moors from North Africa, the Muslim Moors that all came up into Spain and took over. The Gauls, you had like Vikings taking over, you had Celts, you had Saxons, you had Normans, you had like all of these. They were all after land and power, and they were consolidating land and power by marrying each other off. Not to mention like any of the fucking English kings, the Saxe-Bourg-Gothas, the Windsors, the Tudors, the fucking like all of the cunts before them. Like I can't even think of the names of the English kings now because my head is melted. But like all of these families that were like marrying off, like they were having a bunch of fucking kids, and then like their cousins would go off and marry some other cunt and then become the king.
To say in the English kingdoms, they all, you know, as long as they followed the rule of Catholicism, then that, you know, they were in power and they did a lot of fucked up shit.
Yeah, but they were powered by God and nationalism.
Yeah,
and anybody that wasn't on board with that, they were less than.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
same concept here with Hitler. He had an idea, he had an ideology, and anybody that didn't agree with his ideology was a less than, or if you were deemed outside of the race.
So maybe the new world order is the end game, is to get everybody to coincide, governments, religions, everything, for one belief, one government for the whole entire world. Maybe that is the end game. That there's just, and if you, that's it.
One ideology, and if you don't cooperate, you are a less than, and you are undesirable, and you be put in a camp, or you be
or just
exterminated,
killed.
or you be killed, right? So like, what was Hitler looking for that it was so abhorrent to the people, like arguably who are in power now?
Yeah,
because it was only like what 80 years ago that shit all went on. So like, there's still the same kind of political powers, there's still the same. I mean, obviously, like the great changeover with the Democrat and Republican Party in the 60s and stuff like that, but all of that all the way along, it's still the same generational power structure that defeated Hitler, the same America, the same Western culture. We're living in it now still, and look how fucked up it is.
Yeah,
and look how
and they won't change it. I mean, obviously, over all this time, even in, you know, when you went through depressions and housing crisis and
boom bust economy,
just repeat it again.
The spreading of democracy, like I said earlier on,
it just keeps happening.
Just keeps happening, man. And it's this fight against the communist ideology.
So again, like
predominantly
maybe
communist,
that, maybe the end game is just to eventually get the whole world under one umbrella, one government, one religion.
For what reason, though?
Yeah, it still doesn't. I mean, that only
Doesn't
gives
make any
it only gives
sense,
a
man.
portion of the end game. But yeah, it's that part. I guess that's what keeps me searching all the time. I don't know that I'll ever find any of the answers, but even if I found some, I might be happy at the end of this life. I don't know.
We'll find out when Zorp appears in the sky and it's like, Jake, I have your answers. Like
You're
like,
fucking lying. You're lying.
Don't believe you. Coming out protesting Zorp out at the fucking at
Bluebeam.
Yeah. But yeah, it's good chatting to you, man. It's
Hey,
fucking
this has
crazy
been a
times.
great time.
dude.
And I again, if by ever chance you came to mind first, those conspiracy guys will have all his links in our show notes below. This is his logo behind us. It was an honor chatting with you, man. It was really fun, and I hope that maybe we can do this again, maybe on the Jesuit topic or something of that nature.
I go and do me homework and I come back to you and we can talk about Jesuits all night long.
Absolutely, appreciate it, Gordo.
Where can people find you so they're listening on the
Yeah,
podcast?
the Lost Info podcast you can find on Facebook, YouTube. We actually started on the audio side, so iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff. We're trying to build our video side now, so yeah, you can pretty much find us anywhere else. If either the show notes below on ours, and if Gordo would put them on wherever you put it on, we'll send them to you.
I put all the links in the description for.
Yeah,
the
it's not
Lost
hard for you to
Info
find the
podcast.
Lost Info podcast. So,
And the symbol is what? Is that a pie symbol you have on your with a mushroom?
yeah, actually the pi symbol is TLI, the Lost Info. I split it up, and the eye of the
nice.
pyramid. But yeah, the pi symbol split into TLI. On our album cover, it's kind of got the same thing. We have a mushroom cloud, an explosion, atomic bomb, the World Trade Centers, pyramids, all the good stuff on the front.
Oh, very, very, very similar to my own there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I found a bunch of relating things in
man.
our logos. So
It's the melding of the minds. Those are the fucking things that
yeah,
spur
well they
people
change,
on,
they've changed time, and yeah, they spark a conversation, and that's what
is.
leads us into this stuff. So for sure.
Well, thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it, and I hope I hope I'm not such a all your fans listening going, this lad is a fucking melter. What the fuck is he talking about?
I hope they do,
But,
because that's how I loved
I
it.
loved the
Listening
fun.
to your stuff, it was very entertaining. You're like, again, you have a lot of comedian friends on it. You guys go off on these tangents, hilarious, well worth it.
Yeah, man.
Makes,
a few
the
voices
mo-
and a couple of dick jokes.
Yeah,
It's
well, it makes
it's
the
spoonful of
mundane work.
sugar that helps the medicine go down, I think.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's all just like fucking lizards and pedophiles.
Yeah, it gets a little disturbing if you don't put a
like,
joke
I'm
or two
full.
in there.
Yeah, I'm full. I'm okay for lizard pedophiles. But yeah, thanks for having me on, man. And
Absolutely.
Lost Info podcast for my people. All the stuff will be in the description below.
And those conspiracy guys, for anybody that's heard me possibly before Gordo, which I don't know if that's possible, but if so. All right, man. With that, we're out.
Thanks very
See ya.
much. Bye.